This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Very, 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 Mickey, 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 Fishy, Fishy!
You are listening to the Voices of Wrestling podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
Head out and go listen to some boring podcast where they're afraid of their own shadow. Okay? Don't listen to Joe Lanza, because Joe Lanza's not changing.
And Rich Craich.
Give me a name. Like who delivers this guy in a big spot?
Joe, don't yell at me. I like him.
In the big spot, who delivers better than this guy?
Stop yelling at me. I agree.
Voices of Wrestling Flagship podcast, sponsored by MyBookie. I'm Rich Craich, alongside, as always, Mr. Joe Lanza. Joe, what's happening? Talked to you like 7 hours ago. How's it going? No, at this point it was about 12 hours ago. When did we wrap up yesterday's? At 11 or so, we wrapped up our Winter's Coming Instant Reaction Live.
Yeah, a little before 11.
Yeah. So, what's gone on in your life since then?
Well, I just talked to you for a half hour.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I don't know how to answer that.
It was we didn't talk about life though, Joe. We talked about your headset and microphone issues, but we didn't talk about life.
We can talk about life. You want to talk about life?
Not really, but you know.
I don't really want to talk about life.
Okay, then all right. So wrestling, what's going on? Yeah.
I don't really have anything going on. Like, pretty dull.
Things have gotten pretty dull. Yeah, things have gotten pretty dull. There was always those kind of ebbs and flows of you know, even during COVID era, it was like, oh wow, this is why, and it's kind of settling into just kind of life. You know what I mean? At this point, it's really just going.
I just kind of meant in my life. I didn't mean in general.
Oh, well.
I'm just saying, like, I got nothing going on, man. I got nothing to tell you. Yeah.
Well, we'll say. I mean, we are going to talk MyBookie in a little bit here, and I know you got some college basketball into mind, so that will be your opportunity to talk college basketball instead of doing it right now. But as we said, you know, just about. You know, last night we did the Instant Reaction Live. Winter is Coming. That is on the $10 tier. So the live listeners, you guys can listen to that. If you're a freeloader and you want to listen to that, that is also available, as we said, on the $10 tier. The Winter is Coming Instant Reaction. And I just was kind of, you know, 24 hours later now at this point, you know, after the event, everything sort of happened. Do you have any... Have you had time to kind of reflect on it? Do you think differently about Winter's Coming? Do you kind of feel the same? Like, what's kind of your temperature 24 hours later, hearing all the reaction, hearing all the discussion? We have a little bit of ratings news as well to talk about, I guess. Is anything official yet, or is it just kind of like people reading tea leaves?
No, the ratings are in.
Okay, so those are official. Those numbers that have been floating around, those are the official ones?
Yeah, I'll give them to you. They
were late today, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that was causing all the kerfuffle, is that they were late.
There still aren't out. Like the Showbuzz Daily still doesn't have it up.
What the hell? What are they doing? The fuck?
Tony Khan put them out there, and Pro Wrestling Torch somehow has them. So the numbers are out. And last night I asked you what you would consider 950 and a 0.4. Mm-hmm. What was your answer to that? I don't remember.
I think I said yes. I would consider that a win.
Oh, that's right. I asked you if you were in the room, would you sign up for 950 and a 0.4? And you immediately said yes. They did 913 and a 0.42. I think they have to be happy with that, particularly the 0.42. And I would think that doing 913, and I asked this question, haven't gotten an answer yet, and with everything delayed, I understand, that at least a quarter hour or two probably touched 1 million. If they averaged 913. So I think they have to be happy with that number. I mean, they beat NXT 0.42 to 0.16. I mean, that's as ugly as it gets. Ugh. And the other interesting number there is males 18 to 34. And again, credit to Wade Keller, who put this out there on the Torch. Dynamite did a 0.29 to NXT's 0.04.
Oh, God.
That's not me. I'm not misspeaking.
Jeez.
0.29.
That's male 18 to 34.
Male 18 to 34.
That's key demo males, which should, for a pro wrestling show, you would think that is your not necessarily the only audience you care about, but really kind of the target audience that you're used to getting is that male. Yeah, the female is great. It's obviously great to get men and women watching, but like male 18 to 34, that's wrestling's bread and butter and always has been.
Yeah, 0.29 to 0.04, which is, that's just an utter destruction. And in fact, according to Brandon Thurston Howard, that tied Raw this week, the 0.29. So when you take all of this into consideration, I think you have to be happy if you're in the room. It'd be nice to put up the million average.
Yeah, that's my one problem is what type of growth are we getting? This was really, like we said, this is a big time moment. You two arguably biggest stars. You must protect the stars. Right over there.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I started hearing myself randomly very loudly, but no, yeah, your two biggest stars, going out there and you're trying to get those two. You build it up for that one moment. You build it up for this title match, this special title match. Both guys have largely been undefeated as of late. They've been built up, they've been protected, all that sort of stuff. To me, okay, I like that rating. I'm happy with that rating. It's good. I'm sure the network likes it. But I'm also wondering when do we grow and how do we grow? How do we really get to that next level? Or is there a next level? Or is this the next level? Is this it? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that like to me it's like a failure and oh my god, what are we doing? But I do wonder, okay, when are we going to finally see some growth here? Or is it just something that we have to kind of do what we're doing, make sure TNT's happy, win the demo, do well there, and then maybe the growth will happen, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. It does that potentially start becoming a conversation in that room of, okay, look, there's X amount of wrestling fans, and we can try like hell to get new fans, but I don't know if they're ever going to be able to, ever really adapt. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just like, will we ever get more fans, watching this thing anytime soon, or is that just years and years down the line that we don't even know when it's going to happen?
I think you're being incredibly cynical. I don't think that. This was a show to set up to try to attract new fans. When you bring Sting in and you do a big angle and you do a big title change. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work. We don't know, but it's we'll see. I know it's driving you nuts.
Yeah, can we maybe just go to the laptop? It's not driving me nuts. It's driving everybody. It's very loud.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, let's just maybe go to the laptop. I'd rather have real shitty quality than that. What's going on? Sorry, guys.
I offered that option.
Yeah. Well, now we're gonna go back to that option. Stand by. Technical difficulties. I don't have music. I should find technical difficulties music.
I'm here.
Okay, there we go. All right. It sucks, but at least I can hear you.
Yeah.
It was hard to really have any conscious thoughts. Everything will be hopefully settled by next week. We'll get Joe a new headset and
they'll get used to it. I'm echoey, so what? What was I saying?
It's 2020. It's the year of Zoom calls and other bullshit audio. Nobody cares anymore. So as long as they can hear the takes are going to sound the same. That's all that matters.
Yeah. It's like I'm on the phone.
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, we used to do those phone shows every so often. So yeah.
Yeah, when I was in hotel rooms with really bad internet.
There was one. Oh my god, there was one. I think even you said it was like the sketchiest of sketch motels. I forget what it was. It was like the worst internet you've ever had. It was so bad. You sounded horrible. I heard like police sirens in the background. I forget. Do you remember what hotel you were at? Or are those a lot of those? Does that describe a lot of the hotels that you ended up frequenting?
I was in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Okay.
If people who are familiar with Corpus Christi, Texas, understand why you were hearing a lot of police sirens and
it sounded like you were in a crack house. It was like
people getting stabbed. Yeah.
Yeah, there was like doors slamming constantly. There was police sirens. I was like, "What are you? Where are you?"
Yeah, that was,
was this like a roadside motel, or was this like a reputable, hotel company?
I don't remember. It was a chain. I don't remember what it was. It was either like a La Quinta or some shit like that.
It sounded like it had a Red Roof Inn sound to it, so.
Or a Days Inn or something, but that company would book the hotels for me.
Oh, yeah.
And that I remember that hotel. It also had giant cockroaches. And one time I went to check into that hotel. It was a La Quinta on North Beach.
Yeah, let's bury
Corpus
them.
Christi.
Yeah, let's bury those assholes.
So if you know anything about North Beach, Corpus Christi, if you're listening, you know that's a terrible area. So one time I checked in, and to give them credit, they'd always give me like the suite. There's one suite in this whole, with the living room gimmick and everything.
Yeah.
So I remember I opened the door to the Lanza suite where they always put me up, and there were 3 enormous Texas cockroaches just waiting for me. One was on like the end table, one was on the living room floor, and one, when I flipped the light on, just panicked and it was just running around the couch and dove inside of a cushion. And I was like, yeah, I'm not staying here. So that was the last time, I went to the front desk. I said, I'm leaving. You got 3, the room's already booked. I got I got 3 friends in there waiting for. I'm not staying.
Yeah, they're already there. You already have 3 guests. So I'm just getting in the way. It's their room, and I intruded on their room.
Yeah. So then I remember calling my boss, and I was like, look, I'm booking my own room. I'm putting it on the company card, and otherwise I'm going back home. And then from that point forward, they let me book my own rooms. But yeah, that was the Lanza suite where the connection was that god awful. So we just did a phoner, I think. We just did the phoner. That was our WrestleMania review, the year that Roman Reigns and The Undertaker shit the bed. I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I remember that vividly, doing that we did a couple on the phone from the hotels, because sometimes the hotel internet is always complete
the worst.
disaster.
Yeah, they always tell you it's good. It's always fine. Like, because anytime I go on a trip or whatever, I always try to say like, okay, I'm gonna bring my laptop. I'm gonna do all this sort of stuff so I can update the website and I can do. And like, dude, it's like you never get on the Wi-Fi. It's like one bar. You can't do fucking anything. It's just a absolute disaster. You go to them and you say, hey, I can't connect to the internet. Oh yeah, no, you just got to use your your room number as the password. And you're like, I can't get to that site to even put in my. It's always, they're never good. I've never ever once been to a place that's had even remotely decent internet. I'm Google mapping the North Beach area of Corpus Christi right now, and that is a very weird area. What is a bomb go off there? Like, why does it look that way? Well,
there's the Battleship there. That's like the big tourist attraction.
Yeah.
And
but there's this strip that's just like empty lots and hotels.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What happened? Like, why are there just these empty lots? Are these like abandoned buildings, or did they never build anything there?
Well, I haven't worked for that particular company in a number of years, so I haven't done business in Corpus Christi in a long time. So it might be different than when I was there, because this is like, well, what year was that? Like 20?
That was
15 or 16?
Yeah, Undertaker Roman Reigns shitting the bed. You gotta. It's hard. It's there's a lot of Roman Reigns shitting the bed WrestleMania main event, so I do mix them up. I know it was 33. I know it was 33, but I forget what year.
17
was that? Okay, so that would be WrestleMania.
But that was, yeah. Nobody cares, but actually, that was not the same hotel room. But because now I'm thinking about it, I was in San Antonio for that one. But the Corpus Christi one was probably 13 or 14. I haven't been there because I haven't worked for that company in years. So I don't know what you're looking at. Believe me, it wasn't a paradise when I was down down there.
It's bizarre. There's like this strip of land. It's this North Beach area. It's a strip of land, and there's like one street that has a bunch of hotels on it. There's a beach, and then there's just a bunch of empty lots all around these hotels. It's very...
It's probably dilapidated at this point because it was known as a terrible place to stay and hang. The thing about the Lanza Suite is I had a sliding door where you step right out onto the beach. So on paper, it was
except it's
tremendous.
You, but it's you, and you would never go to the beach. So
no, I hate that. But I would sit out there on the porch with my laptop and work, listening to waves crash and shit. That was fine. But like, and down there's dolphins in the water, and there's all kinds of crazy.
Yeah.
For someone like me, that's very exotic to see dolphins hopping out of the water. But yeah, the problem was it was just filthy. And once I saw those cockroaches, I was like, I can't believe I've slept here a dozen times. They've probably been crawling all over me this entire time.
Right.
You know, I should have taken a clue because that was in my man whoring days when I was single.
Yeah.
So I'd get down there, and the first thing I would do is hit up Tinder and all the dating apps and
would
try
they
to
not
get a
go?
little action.
They wouldn't go.
They wouldn't come.
Yes, they're like,
When I would tell them, like,
I've worked in the
sometimes
morning, so,
I'd be trying to set it up, and some of the girls would be like, "Well, where are you staying?" And I would tell them, and they'd be like, "Nah, I'm gonna pass." And I'd be like, "Well, I'll come to you." You know, I'd still try to work it out, obviously, but and then I was like, because I didn't really know the local scene. Then after talking to some people, it turns out that that's just a really shitty fucking area, like for crime and everything. I didn't know that. They were just sending me to that hotel. But yeah, I don't know. This will be like an old school phoner.
I'm looking at there's a Google review of North Beach, Corpus Christi, and someone said very hot, as if like it's not their fault. It's like it's a review of like the hotel, and they're like very hot. Well, I mean, you're in Texas, you know, in August. I don't know. I'm sorry, the hotel can't help that, you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the La Quinta that was the disaster. But yeah. Anyway,
there we go. All right. Well, you're back, and it's a classic Flagship here.
There was a good restaurant down there right next to the hotel. It was like a pirate themed restaurant. I can't remember the name of it.
One sec. I'm fascinated by this North Beach area of Corpus Christi. I'm never gonna go because it looks hideous, but pirate themed. Let's see. I could probably find this. I was seeing something that looked like Pirates Cove. Does that sound right?
That sounds. I mean, how many pirate themed restaurants could be in Corpus Christi? That must be it, right? But I remember.
Oh no, sorry. Blackbeard's on the beach.
That's it.
Blackbeard's on the beach. Yeah. Oh, okay. This is looking pretty good.
That was it. They had a great shrimp dish with giant shrimp. Yeah, that was a good. I used to eat there all the time.
Ooh, there's like a margarita with a big red in it. I'm into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks pretty good. All right. Yeah, I'm yeah.
So we buried the La Quinta, but we put over Blackbeard's
on the beach. Yeah. So.
That's fair. We got one terrible review and one positive review. Are you used to the phone quality?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Now?
I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm okay with it. It was much better than whatever was going on before. So
it's better than the buzzing.
Yes.
So you were better off this way. Anyway, I think you're being a little cynical. I'll present the counter argument. I think they did grow their audience. They did 200,000 more viewers than they did last week. The 0.42 in the demo is the highest demo number they've done in 2020. It's the highest demo number they've done since the first couple weeks on the air when they, opened up real huge and then slowly settled into whatever they were going to settle into. Is it going to sustain? Are people going to keep coming back for Sting? Are people going to keep coming back because this Kenny Omega Impact angle is hot? I don't know. None of us know. That'll be the true indicator of whether they have grown the audience to any degree. I have a feeling they have more big stuff up their sleeve, so we'll see what happens moving forward, and we'll see how hot this angle is. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. Impact this past Tuesday, did 166,000 viewers and a 0.05 in the 18 to 49. Okay. That was good for 121st on Tuesday night. So that'll be our first indication of how hot this angle is. It won't be a super rock solid indication because it's still Access TV and there's a limit to how many people can watch.
Yeah, just a lot of people don't have it, and one thing that's going to be very interesting as well. And I think something to maybe if you're going to monitor this or anybody that out there wants to monitor it, they are on Twitch and other outlets as well. The Impact does air live on a few other different platforms because so few people do have access. So that might be interesting to kind of look at the number of subscribers on Twitch or the the average viewers on Twitch on a normal day weekly basis or whatever, and see how that compares too. Because I think just looking at the TV numbers, like you said, there is a cap to that. There might be people that want to watch but then literally don't have access or don't have access to access. So that might be a limiting factor where then they end up going to Twitch or whatever. So it's not going to necessarily only be people that wanted to watch it or people that are interested in it. There is going to be a contingency of people that are interested but can't find access, and there's going to be a lot of people I think this week and this weekend that are going to be scrambling to figure out if they have access or not, and a lot of people are not going to have it. So,
but it'll be our first clue of how hot this angle really is.
Sure.
I mean, I look at the Impact numbers occasionally, and I think I mentioned this last night on the Instant Reaction, but they're always in that about 150,000 range. And last week they were at 166. So if they come out and do like 210, that's not a world-changing number or anything, but on a percentage basis, that indicates that this thing's pretty hot. If they come out and they do a 150 again, then I don't know. Maybe this thing isn't so hot. Maybe, or it could just mean that AEW fans aren't going to follow Kenny Omega somewhere else to hear him cut a promo.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. So it'll be a soft indication of how hot the angle is. I don't think it's going to be firm evidence either way. Not until Wednesday. Wednesday we'll know. If Wednesday AEW comes out, and I think if they do anything 0.38 or above, they've kept some viewers from the week before. They're not going to do a 0.42. They're not going to hold everyone. They're not going to do the same numbers they did this week. But if they settle back at a level above where they had settled before, that's the indication of growth. And really 1 week, I know everyone's going to be eager to see next week's number, but 1 week really doesn't tell you much either. I want to know 2 months from now, 6 months from now. But it just comes across a little cynical to me to say, oh man, I don't know. Maybe they just can't grow. I don't know. Well, this is the kickoff to two. This felt like a show where they're trying to kick something off. So if this angle does turn out to be something hot, we could see growth moving forward. Depending how they handle Sting. We don't have the quarters. Okay. I don't know if Sting's quarter did an enormous number and we all agree that the segment went well. Well, then, maybe there'll be some interest in Sting as long as he's used properly. So there's a lot of variables and unknowns. I don't think the 913 and the 0.42 is like a blowaway number, but I do think it's a successful number, and I'll put it to you this way. I think they're high-fiving in the room. I think they see last night as a success, particularly the 18 to 34-year-old males. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the other breakdowns because sports... what's the name of the site again?
Showbuzz Daily.
Yeah, the chart's not out, so I can only go off of what Wade Keller reported and whatnot. But that male 18 to 34, to tie Raw. This is what we've been talking about for months now. Their competition is not NXT anymore. It's to see how close they can get to Raw. And they've been nipping at Raw's heels in a lot of the key demos. And, Raw's obviously still blowing them away over 50 and has a substantial lead in some of the other demos, which is why, the gap is what it is. But to me, they're chasing Raw now. NXT is a non-factor. They beat NXT 0.42 to 0.16. And it's not like, and NXT was up a little this week. Last week with the weird week, they did a 0.14. But the week before, they did 632 and a 0.16, which is like exactly what they did this week, 658 and a 0.16. The NXT is not a competition for them anymore. And last week was just that weird day before Thanksgiving. It meant nothing. The same thing happened last year. So, and NXT did poorly last week too. They finished out of the top 50 and did a 0.1, their lowest demo number ever. Well, they might have done a 0.13 once or twice, but so NXT is in the rear view. Now it's all about attempting to catch Raw first in some of these key demos, and then, long term, maybe an overall viewership and the 18 to 49 demo overall. But those are stretch goals.
Right.
You can catch them. You can catch them, and they have caught them in some of these other demos. So I don't know if it's fair to say, oh man, their growth is capped. I don't. It might be. This might be the most you can do because they're legitimately only drawing the super hard. I don't know.
I guess my question isn't necessarily that, like, is this okay? Now it's like doom and gloom. Okay, we can't grow. We can't. I think what it shows me though is short-term growth. Those wrestling fans that are right on the cusp, but just waiting for something to hook them back. I don't think those guys are there anymore. I don't think they're the mysterious fans that have stopped watching WWE over the last 3 or 4 years, or the mysterious fans that used to be watching Impact that no longer watch, or even the more mystical old WCW fans that went away and never came back. Maybe those people are not going to be easy to hook overnight. Maybe you're not going to get those people back. Those people are done with wrestling. They don't want to come back, and it wasn't just about WWE, and it wasn't just about an alternative. They're done. Like they just don't want to watch wrestling anymore. They don't care to watch wrestling anymore. They've moved on. And that's fine. Like if that's the case, that's fine. And I think that this, this first year, this last year especially was a really good opportunity for AEW to try to see, hey, are there a bunch of fans that are right on the fence that really want to watch wrestling, but WWE's not doing it for them? What can we do to, present something to them that they're now all of a sudden going to start watching us in droves? And they probably did. I mean, they probably did hook quite a few people, but it's not enough to be like, oh my God, look at all these fans that were just sitting here waiting for something. Those fans have not come back, really. I mean, I think in large numbers, those fans have not come back, and that's fine. Like, all that tells me is that, okay, we're on the right path, and what we need to do is just keep doing what we're doing, and who knows, in a year, maybe we get new wrestling fans. Maybe we grow new wrestling fans. We do stuff like, including Mike Tyson, or we do stuff with Shaq, or we do stuff that, that sort of stuff I think now is what I would do a little bit more even than nostalgia acts. Because we've seen a lot of that with AEW so far is bring back bring back Arn Anderson, bring back Tully Blanchard, bring back Sting. And again, we'll see the Sting, quarters and see, that sort of stuff. Maybe that's the wrong plan. Maybe the idea is not to hook old wrestling fans. Maybe the plan is, okay, what can we do to create new wrestling fans now? Because I think we've maybe seen, and again, who knows, next week there might be a shit ton of people that say, hey, Sting's on the show and I'm going to watch the show now. This conversation might be a lot better to have, next week after we see those numbers, or we can get the quarters on Sting or whatever. But to me, and I don't mean this as a doom and gloom. I just mean this as maybe now Dynamite can say, okay, look, we've probably capped the amount of hardcore wrestling fans that are going to start watching us, the old school or the last wrestling fans. What can we do now in 2021? The goal is create new fans. What can we do to make more people interested in our product? And they've planted some of those seeds already. The Shaq thing, like I mentioned, I think Cody on whatever the Big Show or whatever the hell, the random ass game show or whatever, that stuff's good. Like, that stuff is really, really cool, and that will hopefully eventually make some people go, hey, what's, let me check out this AEW thing. Let me go check out this wrestling. Maybe they watched it sometime in the past, but they wouldn't consider themselves, hardcore wrestling fans. That might be the goal in 2021 is, okay, now how do we grow a completely new subset of wrestling fans? Because we maybe have tapped in as much as we can to the hardcore wrestling fans that were just waiting for an alternative.
I mean, I think you could try to do both. And I think that's what they're doing. Because, again, we don't know what kind of effect something like Sting is going to have. And this is why you go out and you do things with Shaq and Mike Tyson to get those lapsed fans or casual fans to at least put their eyes on it and then try to capture them. They loaded the show up last night with a lot of stuff because I think they knew a lot of new eyeballs were going to be on them, or more eyeballs than usual. So now we just wait and see if it worked. I don't know. Is there a number they could have done realistically where you'd be a little more positive about whether they're capturing? I mean, last night you said you thought they could do 1 million. So they came up a little short of the 1 million. But the demo number has to be in the range that you kind of thought you figured they would do, right? I mean, my guess was 950 and a 0.4. And they did 913 and 0.42. But I mean, I didn't expect that, if they did 1.3 million viewers and a 0.5, I mean, yeah, maybe the conversation would be different right now, but to me, that wasn't realistic. So can you try to make new fans and try to recapture some of the old fans at the same time? I mean, because I don't think it has to be one strategy or the other.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah, I just think maybe more focus in one department over the other. But that's not to say that they haven't been doing that so far. I think they have been doing a pretty good job of balancing both. I think to me, I expected maybe a little bit more. The key demo numbers are great. Like, if I'm them, I go, yeah, that's awesome. I'm definitely high-fiving that. I'm sure TNT's happy with that. I'm sure everybody's happy with those numbers. But then after I kind of celebrate that, I look at it and go, okay, well, man, we would have loved to get to 1 million. We would have loved to have gotten back to what we were getting in those early days when we first came out of the air. And there were fans clearly that, because what was it? Out of the gates, it was like 1.4 million or something like that, right?
Well, yeah, the first week, yeah. And then, the next couple of weeks were right around what they're doing now, 980, 950. I think they might have done 1 million the first 2 weeks. And then after that, it was the 9s, and then they, the pandemic came, and it settled.
Right. I'm just, I'm like you're right. Like, no, it should definitely be celebrated. Like, that demo number is great, and nipping at the heels of Raw in those key demo numbers, that's fantastic. That's really good stuff. And like you said, now to me, maybe that's the hurdle they have to do. Okay, let's get to where Raw is in the key demo, and then once we're past that, now the next goal is let's grow this thing more than we, let's not worry about, hardcore wrestling fans, lap wrestling fans, old WCW fans, old TNA fans, whatever, old WWE fans. No, we're on to bigger and better things now. Let's keep growing this thing, keep moving. And that's, that's very possible. That could be what, I mean, I'm just saying for 2021, maybe that is the thing to kind of look at now that you have proven that you can get to that key demo figure. You can really blow that out of the water. Now look at maybe, okay, what can we do to just get way more eyeballs than possible on this program? Is there anything we can do to do that? And that would be my next kind of goal.
Then let's talk about the angle, because one of the things about doing an angle like this is you want to own the headlines. Mm-hmm. You want your Wrestling Incs and your Fightfuls and your Wrestle Zones and all these places. You want to be their top story every day. You want people's Twitter feeds to be filled up with what's going on between AEW and Impact, right? So if they can own the headlines and create buzz, that translates into interest, but maybe not as quickly. You're not turning around seeing instant results from something like that. That's more of, all right, well, I got to check out what all this is about. So if they can sustain the buzz, because they have it right now, there's a reason we're leading off the show with it. There's a reason we did an instant reaction last night. There's a reason the entire, wrestling world was waiting around for these ratings today. They have the buzz now.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Whether you liked the match or the match finish, and we talked about it at length last night, if people want to go back and listen, $10 tier, okay? Whether that's all immaterial. They without question have people talking. Would you agree with that?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no, they've owned the headlines. They got people talking, and I would say, the getting people talking thing is a double-edged sword. That was an old Vince Russo thing, is like he would do something so stupid and people would say, hey, look how stupid this is. And you are getting a little bit of that. You are definitely getting that. But like you said, now is the key, that in this moment where you have people both positively and negatively reacting to this angle, now is the key where you go, okay, cool. And now the follow-up is so key. The follow-up is so important, and that was always one of the issues when, it was the old Vince Russo thing is, we're getting people talking, we got headlines, we got all that sort of stuff, but he never had a follow-up. He never had a next, okay, after we get the headlines, now what do we do? It was, okay, we'll just get headlines. It's like, no, that's fine. You got to do that next thing, and that's the position AEW is in right now, is both positively and negatively, people are reacting to this finish, which is fine. You're getting that talk, you're getting that buzz, you're getting that discussion. Now you got to follow it up big. You got to hook these people now.
They have people's attention. I don't know if it's, look, I didn't love the angle myself. I don't know if it's fair to compare it to a Russo angle, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. No.
I don't think it's like, those Russo angles were just universally terrible. And to your point, there wasn't a ton of value in getting people talking when they're talking just negatively about it. There's no value in that. I think this has people talking in the right ways in terms of people are interested in where it's going to go, and they have people's attention. Now they can lose people's attention quickly if the angle is bad. And, the first step is to watch Impact on Tuesday. And I really think that they're going to pop a number for Impact, whatever that means, because I think people are interested in this. And then whatever they do on Impact, it's not a matter of, again, there's a cap on how many people are going to watch that. But the video will be on YouTube and there'll be clips. So it's important that they knock it out of the park on Tuesday. Even if there's only 200,000 people watching, it's important that they knock that out of the park to build to Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Right? So what they've done here is they added an extra day to continue building momentum on whatever this thing is. It'll be 2 days a week of capturing the head. Because Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, it's going to be what Kenny Omega did on Impact. And how convenient enough, there's a Dynamite in a couple hours. You see, so it's not necessarily how people are watching Impact. It's what Impact and it's what Impact continue owning those headlines on Wednesday morning after leading into Dynamite and whatever you're going to do there. So this is step one, and you do you hope it pops big. This is just, we're in step one. And if this do hit on big here, we'll see. I don't know. Both of us were very, non-committal last night. We don't know what's going to happen here. If this ends up being a big interpromotional thing, and I think it was Brandon Thurston who had a pretty decent idea, I think in our Slack chat, is this going to culminate in some big blood and guts match where Kenny Omega leads some Impact guys against Adam Page and some Dynamite guys? I mean, that's one extreme. Or is it just going to be Kenny Omega's cutting a promo on Impact tomorrow night, and then we're just back as usual? That's the other extreme. We don't know. So we'll see. And then there's the whole Sting factor. So it's going to take time to see if last night has some kind of lasting impact.
I did see. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was basically done.
One thing I did see, and it actually got my interest when people were saying, "Hey, what about this scenario if Kenny Omega goes there? If he goes to Impact Wrestling and does?" And it's a great idea because it references back to a question that you asked me last night on an Instant Reaction of what is AEW getting out of this? What benefit does AEW get from Kenny Omega going on to Impact? And somebody had this really cool idea. I forget who it was. Maybe it was a few people that were talking about it. But somebody said, what if Kenny Omega wins the Impact World Championship? What if he comes out, he's all talking shit, all this sort of stuff, and Rich Swann comes out and says, "All right, buddy, you want a shot at this title? You think you're a hot shot? Well, you come into my turf or whatever. You have to beat me for this title. Yeah, however you want to do it. Whether it's a 1 week thing, whether it builds up over the course of a few weeks or whatever. I don't know. I'm just kind of hypothetically, speaking. And Kenny Omega, beats him and he takes the title. To me, that is a benefit to AEW. That when you talk about something that AEW could benefit from and gain from, giving Kenny Omega another title, even if yes, it's the Impact title. Maybe it doesn't have the prestige of some other titles, but it's still the world championship of a company that's been around for 15 years at this point. People know what that title is, and it's another title for this guy to have. So he can have the AEW title, the AAA title. He has the AEW title. He's got the Impact title. Like that to me is a benefit. That guy walking around, that cocky asshole walking around with his stupid sunglasses and his dorky little suit, wearing 3 belts or 2 belts or whatever, that to me is a huge benefit. That does something for me. And that when I heard that idea, I said, okay, that's something that I can sink my teeth into. That's something where if Don Callis says, "Hey, can we have Kenny Omega?" and Tony Khan says, "Well, yeah, how about he wins your title?" and Don Callis says, "Yeah, sure." That to me, I'm like, okay, cool. That's going to work for me. That will work. That is something that we can use and utilize and build from. And I think that would be a really cool story as well if they were to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is all curiosity because I'm as curious as anyone to see. There's a lot of different things they can do that. There's a lot of different things they can do. And, the key is to just make this as interesting as possible and see if this thing has some legs beyond just this week. And I'm sure there's a plan. I mean, this wasn't hastily thrown together. The fact that Don Callis was out there to call previous Kenny Omega matches was them planting the seeds for this all along. We talked about it last night.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember the photo, the innocuous photo in the background? Kenny Omega's on his couch talking, and there's this photo of Don Callis in the background. People were wondering, what the fuck? Is that Don Callis? Like, who the hell is that? And yeah, that was just a throwaway nothing, just a nothing that did not matter at the time, was kind of just bizarre, and now makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and, him calling Kenny other matches throw you off the scent because he comes out again and you're like, oh, he calls all of Kenny's matches. There's nothing to this. So you're not expecting an angle. But, they've obviously had this planned out for a very long time. And this has been the plan all along. So it's not hastily thrown together. Whatever they're doing is carefully plotted out. And Callis had said that we'll explain everything on Tuesday, and the announcers were putting it over as like this kind of screw job deal. I think the idea is going to be that Kenny faked the injury. And that was the plan all along. Fake the injury to give a plausible excuse for Callis to come to ringside and somehow get that microphone to him. And again, your mileage may vary on the angle, right? I don't love it. You don't love it. I hate it. I disliked it a little more than you disliked it. That's the sense I got last night talking to you.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it as a one-off. To me, like, and to kind of restate a little bit, I mean, we went into it in intricate detail again last night on the Instant Reaction Live, but and especially sleeping on it and 24 hours later, I kind of like it even better than I liked it last night, because when you talk about all the stuff that went into the build of this match, and Kenny Omega is having he tells Jon Moxley, I don't want to have weapons, I don't want to do what we did last time, I just want a gentleman's agreement that we just have a good wrestling match. And Jon Moxley goes, okay, sure, fine. Like, I don't really want to do that, but that's fine, I'll do it. And then Kenny turns his back on that promise. and screws this guy over, hits him with the microphone, does all that sort of stuff. And again, full disclosure, if this happens 5 more times over the, if Don Callis is in every single Kenny Omega match, and now Kenny Omega can't beat anybody, and he has to face, he's got to use a microphone to beat Alex Reynolds, then I'm going to be fucking pissed. I'm going to say that fucking sucks and it's garbage. If he does it just against Jon Moxley, and he goes out there and he kicks everyone else's ass, then that is good heat to me. That is what I love. That is, this guy was not confident enough that he could beat that guy. What that does is that puts Jon Moxley over. It makes Jon Moxley seem like that much of a big deal. That, I lost the title, but I lost the title because that asshole cheated, and that asshole can beat everybody else on the roster, but he cannot beat me because he knows he can't beat me. And he had to resort to cheating to beat me. And if that's the story, I'm in on that story. If the story is Don Callis helps this guy cheat every single week, I'm out, and I'm going to tell you it sucks. I'm going to think it's garbage. But in this one moment, I think it's really good heat. It's all about the follow-up, though. It is all about how often if he goes right back to just being Kenny Omega, the guy just beats the fuck out of people, I'm in. Because that would be the more frustrating. That's like we talked about when we talk about, the New Japan and the evil stuff, is the Prince Devitt thing. Is like, when Prince Devitt turned to New Japan, it's like, dude, what do you do? You don't need this. Like, why are you cheating? You don't have to cheat. You're really good. Like, you're already a very well-accomplished wrestler. Like, why are you cheating to win? And that was the heat. It was just like, he was like, I just want it to be easier. And it's like, no, dude, like, no, you're fucking great. Just be great. And that was the frustrating part about that. And that's what I want. I still want Kenny Omega to be great, but I want him to have this cloud hanging over him that he had to cheat to beat Jon Moxley. That's a story I like. I don't want this guy having to cheat to win every single match. And we're seeing that in other companies with big time stars. WWE, of course, does it with everybody, and New Japan doing it now, of course, with Evil, who can't beat anybody without Dick Togo's help.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when Evil first turned and Dick Togo was revealed and the first Garrote Wire spot, it was surreal and it had buzz and it had people talking, and it was like, maybe we didn't love that Evil was getting the title, but the angle itself, I don't think people were super negative on. It was when they did it 19 times the rest of the summer that everybody got tired of it. And that's kind of what you're saying here. It's like, at least on this show, we didn't completely turn on these Evil matches until we saw that they were the pattern, that they were doing it every time out. And it was redundant and it sucked. And it wasn't what New Japan is. And this isn't what AEW has been. But like you're saying, if this is a one-off just to kick off a big angle, I still don't think my problem is the use of the foreign object. I think you could have accomplished the same thing with a nut shot or a low blow or a roll up or whatever. The idea of the foreign object really bothers me, and that's just a me problem. Because if it ends up being a big angle and it's not a repeated pattern, then that's just me being a baby, and I just have to live with it. And it's just doesn't match my personal taste of what I want them to be. But it's still pro wrestling. It's still American pro wrestling, and they're going to do stuff like this from time to time. As long as it's from time to time, that's fine.
Yeah.
And they've been very clean about their biggest matches up to this point. Clean winners and losers, which is a big part of the appeal of AEW to me. So it'll lose a little something if this becomes the essence of Kenny Omega's character and what their main events are built around now. So I agree with you. As long as it doesn't become a pattern, but it could. I could very easily see this being what they are now with Kenny on top. But I like your idea better, where he just didn't feel like he could beat Moxley. And like you said, that's the cloud that hangs over his head. And the truth that he knows and that the fans know.
Mm-hmm.
That he can't beat this guy one-on-one. Straight up. And he had to lie to him and make a gentleman's agreement and then cheat anyway. Because that's the heat here. Or this what's supposed to be the heat. That they had this gentleman's agreement and he went back on it. And bloodied Moxley up and stole his title. Maybe it isn't for me, but if it works, it works. So, I guess we'll see in the quarter hours, which I'm still checking to see if we're going to get them before we go off the air, are going to be super interesting to me. To see, what kind of interest Sting had and what kind of interest the main event had. And I want to see how many of these segments touched 1 million viewers. I'm very curious about that. So yeah, it's a lot of unknown right now. but I think they have mostly positive buzz, and they have mostly positive. They have curious interest. I think people are curious, and that's a good thing. Maybe there's some skepticism in a lot of the people who are curious about this, but they are curious, and I think that people are interested to see where it goes. So from that standpoint, strong ratings numbers, strong demo, strong viewership, and there seems to be a sense of buzz. So I have to call last night a success.
Yeah, I've certainly, I could say from, my work around, the old water cooler, it was an interesting day. It was definitely the first time I had there's a lot of like, semi wrestling fans or kind of casual wrestling fans that I work with. And Sting was a big talking point, and most of it positive. Most of it was, oh, that's really cool that Sting's back. And what's an interesting part about that as well, we didn't really touch on it in our instant reaction, is that a lot of people bring up that, hey, Sting was in TNA for, a decade, and he barely registered or he barely did anything. And I don't think that's all the way true. Like, if you look at the ratings patterns, you look at the numbers, like, Sting was a mover in Impact Wrestling. He was a big deal when he came to the Impact, and when he was there, he was an important part of that company. And the other big part too, and we touched on this briefly, I kind of asked the question of, okay, what are we going to do with Sting? Like, what are they going to do with him? And Dave kind of alluded to it. Dave Meltzer alluded to it a little bit on the Wrestling Observer Radio this morning, and I think Tony Khan's kind of said the same thing as well. Is that he's a multi-year contract rostered member, but he's not going to be a bell-to-bell guy. It's and that's, I think, the big thing that kind of comes up is when people bring up TNA. Yes, he was in TNA, and no, he didn't like completely change the game for TNA in the decade or whatever he was there, or on and off for a decade or whatever. But I think, one, you have the idea that it was TNA and it was Impact, and there was always a stink to it. And I know Impact fans get really upset about that, but they did that to themselves. A lot of people wanted TNA to be great, and at one point or another, they did something that made people go, these fuckers, they're no different. They're not, and from pretty much the moment it started, they started digging themselves a hole that they've been trying for decades now to kind of climb out of, and there'd be brief little periods where they climb out of it, and then they go right back into it or whatever. A lot of their own doing as well, but there was always a stink to TNA. There was always a stink to that brand and that logo and that, those three letters, so much so that they got rid of TNA and got Impact, but everybody still knows there's that certain sort of, there's just something about TNA and Impact that it doesn't have the same impact, for lack of a better term. But the other thing too is that Sting was a regular everyday wrestler, and in some cases pushed and beat people, and an important part of the actual in-ring of the company. And I think that is where you could probably steer yourself wrong when you bring in a Sting, or you bring in an Arn Anderson, you bring in a Tully Blanchard, you bring in these sort of people. Just having them a part of your TV, I think, is fine. I think that's the key. Because what you want is those people at my work that say, hey, oh, Sting's in AEW, that's kind of cool. And then they watch, and then maybe this is the first time they've ever seen Darby Allin, and they go, hey, this Darby Allin guy's kind of cool. And then that can kind of grow from there. The problem with a lot of companies is they would bring in old guys, the old guys would beat young guys, and it was just like, oh, Sting's there, cool. And then when those people got bored, they just kind of moved on and they stopped watching because they were bored of Sting, or they were bored of Hogan, or bored of Nash, because they'd seen those guys a bunch of times. The key now is that if you get those eyeballs for Sting, you get those eyeballs with the old guys, is that they're not in the ring beating young guys. They're not in the ring, that they are attached to young guys or getting young guys over, and that AEW has done a tremendous job of so far. And I think that will be the true benefit that Impact was not able to do with Sting, that AEW can do with Sting, is that, by virtue of Sting being there, more people might be aware of Darby Allin, more people might be aware of Cody, more people might be aware of whatever. And once those people do tune in, if they tune in, again, we'll get those quarters and we'll know if those people tune in, now converting them into actual fans, and converting them into fans of your current roster, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's Sting, you remember Sting. And that is the fault that TNA and Impact always did, is just said, here's Kevin Nash, he's a star. And that was it. And that's where the Kevin Nash thing ended.
He's not going to wrestle. I don't know why people are worried about this. At most, he's going to do gimmick matches. I mean, we talked about it last night. He's not going to be, he's not going to be trading top wrist locks with Scorpio Sky. He's not going to wrestle. Okay, he's 61 years old, soon to be 62. I
don't think he wants to either. If I'm being honest, I don't know if he really even wants to.
He's not going to wrestle. I see people flipping out about that. He's not going to wrestle. He'll do 6-man tags and swing a bat in some no DQ matches or something. He's not going to be a wrestler, not even a part-time wrestler. He's not going to wrestle. He'll do gimmick stuff. So that's not even a concern. I mean, they put him on the roster page with, the 0-0 win-loss record, and I saw people flipping out over it. It means nothing. I'm telling you right now, I would be stunned if he's like out there, having matches on a semi-regular and even a semi-regular basis. That's not going to be his role. They brought him in because he's a big star, and they brought him in because Cody's a fan, and they brought him in because they think he could sell some T-shirts, and they brought him in because they think he could pop some quarter hours, and they brought him in because they think Darby can get a little bit of rub off of him, and then whoever else they match him up with down the line. That's why he's there. Okay, he's not there to have matches and have terrible matches and.
Yeah, he's not there to win. He's not there to win the AEW, World Championship. He's not there to. I don't even think win the TNT Championship.
They're not going to do that. So I have zero concerns of that. We talked last night. I couldn't believe that people were even considering that. He's not going to wrestle. I'm not worried about that at all. And then we'll see what value he brings to the table. I mean, based on the number, it looks like, his first appearance was a win. We don't have the quarters, but I would assume it did well since they did well overall. But look, as long as this stays semi-hot and, even if it tanks, AEW is going to be the big talk in wrestling for the next couple of weeks. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, shows like this are going to lead off with AEW, and like we talked about before, they're going to own the headlines. They're the big talk right now until the week of Wrestle Kingdom, when New Japan will steal some of those headlines. But WWE has nothing on the horizon that's going to matter until the Royal Rumble. So this is like almost a perfect time for them to take a big step and do some big things, because they're really going to own the consciousness of wrestling fans until the Royal Rumble. So when's the Rumble? End of January?
Yeah, the last few weeks of January.
The off week before the Super Bowl. Right? That's usually when it is.
Usually, yeah.
So you're talking the last week of January. So they've got, all of December and almost all of January, AEW does, to just completely own the headlines and the buzz in wrestling, with that little blip that'll come from Wrestle Kingdom. But the thing about it is, we've talked about this. Wrestle Kingdom is, New Japan is not nearly as popular in the West as it was. Wrestle Kingdom's still going to get buzz and all that, but the combination of the clap crowds and COVID and the fact that New Japan has slipped in popularity in the West, and a lot of that was a lot of, let's call it like it is, AEW has taken a lot of their market share. Among, a lot of hardcore AEW fans were hardcore New Japan fans that are now hardcore AEW fans. Yeah. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So I don't think Wrestle Kingdom even is the headline grabber that it was as little as a year ago or 2 years ago. I think that
particularly without, and particularly without a Chris Jericho, without a Kenny Omega, without the guys
that are in AEW. That's part of the reason they've stolen their market share. AEW came in and they brought in all of the people that the Western fans liked in New Japan, and then they took their market share. They bumped them right out of that number 2 spot in the market and took it over because they have Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho and the Young Bucks and all of these wrestlers that, a lot of the Western fans were in part fans of New Japan because of. So, I mean, I'm not breaking any news here. I think everyone who listens to this show understands that AEW has taken New Japan market share, and then New Japan lost their TV on top of everything else, which doesn't help. So, the point here is they've got the next 2 months to make this thing work, and they have everybody's basically full attention for the next 2 months, with the exception of January 4th and 5th. Nobody's paying attention to Super Juniors, and this World Tag League Tour. It has zero buzz, none. And a lot of that is the COVID and the clap crowds. A lot of that is you don't have the stars that have been in it because of both travel and because of guys have moved up to heavyweight. But this is it's not the usual time of year for Best of the Super Juniors. This is like the most low-key, under-the-radar Best of the Super Juniors going back probably to 2012. So, it's no one's paying attention to New Japan, and they won't until the 4th. So they're going to own these next 2 months. They have to take advantage of it. Because once Royal Rumble happens, then you're in the Mania season. And now, you're fighting for attention again. So this was actually pretty good timing to start kicking things into gear and doing an angle with Shaq and, all the stuff they did last night.
All right, so that is AEW Winter's coming again. You are doing the Thursday TV reviews tomorrow when you hopefully get the quarters or when you have the quarters ready to go. So people looking for the review of AEW Winter's coming. That is on our $10 tier, the $10 patreon.com/voices of wrestling tier. On the $5 tier, the Thursday TV reviews, you're going to go over the quarters, you're going to talk about MLW, but you're not going to do a blow-by-blow review of Winter's coming. Again, that is on our Instant Reaction Live from last night. So just want to let people know about that, just kind of do a little clarity. And you'll have the quarters no matter what. It's just a matter of exactly when and from who, I guess, right? So because Dave Meltzer will have him in the Observer tonight, but you'll be able to break them down with some good detail and really give people, for people that have not listened to like when you break down the quarters, it's tremendous audio because you do a great job of talking about what was on what segment, what did what. Like sometimes Dave will just kind of post them, or sometimes other people just kind of post them, and they're worthless numbers without the analysis that comes with it. So that's where I think it'll be a really really cool listen tomorrow once you get those quarters. And yeah, we're all kind of wondering what that Sting quarter does and what that main event does, because that'll be huge tell for really ratings moving forward.
Yeah, we'll see if we get the quarters. Who knows with the everything being weird this week. But there will be a Thursday TV reviews. Obviously, it didn't happen on Thursday because I was waiting around for the ratings and seeing if I get the quarters. Didn't get them. So if I do the show tomorrow, I'll still be doing a Thursday TV reviews because I still have the MLW Fusion to go over. More ratings talk. Hopefully the quarters, so I can dive into that. So it's not all repeated content. And then I will review Dynamite again, and I'll just do it in a different way than you and I did it. So, there's still going to be a show. I mean, people have asked, and I know I answered last. But yeah, I'm still going to do a reviews this week at some point, or maybe not with this Mike situation.
Well, maybe. There's Best Buy's open by you. We can get you solved. I think by tomorrow.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out.
We'll get it for sure. So yeah, if you're wondering why Joe sounds the way he does, he's on his laptop microphone. So, but it's fine. It's a throwback to the 2014 days. Everybody always says, "Oh, I wasn't around for those days." What were those days like? Well, this is what they're like. So, with a lot more, with bated breath of will the show record or not. Those days, unfortunately, thankfully, are gone. But the mic quality is back to what it was. But yeah, we'll get that all solved up by next week. But it's fine. I've gotten used to it. I'm sure the listeners have as well. Okay, Joe, I have a question for you. Are you ready to answer it?
I'm ready.
What season is it?
Well, I think it's still winning season.
I was trying to see if it's actually winter. Has the winter solstice happened yet? That is not until December 21st. So it's not winter. You're right. It is winning season. And between the NFL, college football, and your beloved college basketball, there is no shortage of games to watch. And with thousands of lines available on all of your favorite sports and events, you can turn your game day into payday with MyBookie.ag. It's been a while since we've talked about MyBookie, Joe, but I know you're using the college basketball. Are you? So I know you're an avid watcher of college basketball. Are you an avid gambler of college basketball as well?
Believe it or not so much. Not great for the ad read.
Not great,
but no.
not ideal. But no, go on. Because
I don't gamble.
But you do good. You do good.
Basketball.
You do good. You do a lot of college football gambling, but.
Yeah, and I don't even like college football as much as college basketball. I actually don't like college football at all. But college basketball, it's too hard, too many variables. The players stink, so it's harder to project. I kind of stay away from it. I don't even do a March Madness pool. I haven't filled out a March Madness bracket in probably a decade. That probably stuns you.
Not really. That seems like something you would do because you're kind of counterculture guy. I get it. I understand because everybody.
I'm a counterculture guy.
With your sports, you tend to be a little bit, counterculture, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I mean, in some ways, but
the bracket thing's. Let's be honest. The bracket thing's annoying as fuck.
I don't like filling out a bracket.
It's stupid. It's a bunch of people that have never watched any college basketball throughout the year talking about college basketball like they know, oh, Rhode Island, or you don't know anything about Rhode Island. Shut the fuck up. And then the best is tell you about his bracket guy. Like, you give two fucking shits about random dude telling you about his bracket. I don't care, dude. Have you ever once in your life cared what somebody else's bracket looks like?
No, it's the same as when people try to show you their, kids' pictures or pictures of their dog or the bad beat they had at the poker table. Nobody cares. No one cares about your bad beat story. And the other one I hate? When people try to tell you about the dream they had last night. Is there anything worse than that? Like, oh man, I got to tell you about this dream. And you're just like, no, just hang me from a beam in the garage rather than listen to this story. No thanks. I can't do it. I mean, no one cares. So yeah, same thing. No one cares. Your fantasy football team, I don't care if you lost by half a point because Juju Smith-Schuster had a big game on Monday night. No one cares except for you. Stop telling me about your fantasy football team. Stop reciting your dream to me. Stop showing me pictures of your snot-nosed kids. Don't tell me about your poker bad beats. And yes, I don't care about your NCAA bracket.
Well, what you should care about is game spreads, championship futures, player prop bets. It is never too late to get in on the action at mybookie.ag and start turning your sports knowledge into actual cash in your wallet. You sign up today at mybookie.ag, and when you do, you want to use that promo code VOW, and that's going to claim you a deposit match dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. So if you put $1,000 in, they'll put $1,000 in. You put $5 in, they'll put $5 in. You put $20 in, you guessed it, they're going to give you $20. So it's free money if you use that promo code VOW at mybookie.ag. It's a bonus designed to give you a little help and a head start on your winning season. Once again, it's promo code VOW to claim your bonus when you make your first deposit. You got UFC cards, death pools, college football, NFL, college basketball, the NBA coming up in just a few weeks here, believe it or not. Shockingly already, the NBA coming back. So there's plenty of sports at mybookie.ag to bet on. You can sign up today to begin your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. Again, mybookie.ag. I just remembered I got to do got some futures bets on those NBA season coming up. Put a little note to do that. I'll never forget the 1 year, Joe. I forget if I've told the story on the air, but I'll never forget you were in Vegas for something. And it was 2013 and you were saying, "Hey, I'm in Vegas, I'm at a book, can I ask you some questions about, what you think NBA title chances are?" And I'm like, "Yeah, shoot. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can help out or whatever." And I remember you saying, this is maybe 2012, I want to say it was. I think it was 2012, actually. Because you said, well, what about, the Spurs are like 20-1. And I'm like, yeah, the Spurs, though, like, they're not, they're nothing, man. They made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, but they got destroyed. They're getting old. Tim Duncan's almost 40. Like, yeah, what are you doing? And you're like, I really want to do it, Rich. I really think 20-1 is like a great odds on the Spurs. It's the Spurs. It's Greg Popovich. It's Tim Duncan. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. They got all the way to Game 7 of the NBA Finals. They did not win that year. They won the next year, but I never will forget you saying, "Yeah, hey, Rich, nice job telling me not to take that 20-1 odds on the Spurs," because you were going to put like a decent amount of money on them, and the odds would have just been incredible. Maybe they're even more than 20-1. They might have 50-1 or something like that at that point. I remember just like I wanted the Spurs to win, but then I also did not want the Spurs to win, just because I knew you would just be like, "Hey, nice job, asshole!" Like we could, I would have shared some of that money with you, you motherfucker. But now you get nothing. So, I always feel bad about that year.
Well, that's because gambling isn't about picking winners as much as it's about value. Mm-hmm. And that's what people miss out on. That's a big thing that people miss. It's about value, not necessarily, anyone can go to the track and bet all the favorites, and you're not going to come, you come home, maybe you'll have a few more dollars in your pocket than what you showed up with, but the ability to pick long shots and, horses with long odds, that's where you make your money. Same thing with sports betting in general. It's always about value. So that's the moral of the story you're telling here.
Yeah.
Spurs were a good value.
They were a great value. Yeah, last year I was dabbling in a little bit of, it was prior to the year. Little did I know about the whole pandemic or whatever. But I saw like really good value on the Denver Nuggets for like winning the title or going to the finals or something like that. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, why not just put like $20 on this or $50 on this? Because like it was insane. It was like 170 to 1 or there's some ridiculous value for the Nuggets to make the finals, and that makes sense. They're in the Western Conference. You got the Spurs. You got the Clippers and the Lakers and a few other real good teams in the West. And then motherfuckers made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, the pandemic changed a lot of stuff, but man, they got real close, and that's where it's just like, dude, yeah, you got to look. It's really easy to go plop down $50 on the Lakers, and you're gonna win $51 or whatever. But that's no fun. That's not cool. So yeah, I gotta look at those because I've always been meaning to jump into it, and this is the perfect time to do it with that MyBookie promo code. VOW, try to get in on those futures bets and make some money this year, or lose some money most likely, but at least have some fun, rooting on the Utah Jazz as they climb to the NBA Finals. So, all right, we're gonna move into a little bit more WWE focused topics here. We're gonna start out with the unfortunate news that came out yesterday, the death of Pat Patterson, a major name, both obviously in actual in-ring pro wrestling. And then a guy who had just a Hall of Fame career behind the scenes as well, as both a booker, kind of the right-hand man to Vince McMahon, just a trainer, a consultant, whatever. I mean, he just did it all in the wrestling business, and just one of the all-time great pro wrestling minds. And I mean, it just cannot be understated how important he is to pretty much everybody listening to this show. I'm sure in some way, shape, or form was influenced by Pat Patterson and his ideas and his way of structuring wrestling, his mind for wrestling, his whatever. Like I truly believe that everybody listening to this, pretty much. I mean, there's going to come a generation in a few years where obviously they are not going to be influenced anyway, by a Pat Patterson, but like really pretty much anybody 20 years or older, I think in some way, shape, or form is influenced by Pat Patterson, and whether they even know it or not.
Yeah, I mean, think about all your favorite Royals or your favorite Royal Rumble spots. He laid them all out. I mean, they would bring him back even when he was a part-timer or not really with the company, just to lay out the Royal Rumble every year.
Yeah, until 2018, I believe, was the last one he did. I don't know if he did 19 and 20, but I know for a fact they brought him in 2018 to kind of look at it and come up with the ideas for that Rumble. And yeah, he at that point he's still not really with the company. He's just kind of in a consulting role. But man, every January it was, fuck, how do we get to this? Well, call Pat. Pat'll sit down and he'll figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think he invented the timed battle royal, the timed entry battle royal, but he did bring it to WWE, correct? That's the deal there. Like he pitched the idea of doing this style of match in WWE, I believe, and then he was just a master of laying them out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that those house show Royal Rumbles in 87 and then the one on USA Network in 88 were the first of their kind. I do think other places did them. I could be wrong about that, but he definitely brought the idea to Vince McMahon. And then he was just known as just an incredible mind in terms of putting them together. And, a lot of those Royal Rumbles were just tremendously laid out. And, some of the spots are some of the most memorable spots in WWE history. And the matches too, you instantly think about, whether it's 92 was Flair, right? 92.
Yep.
Or, Ray going the distance or whatever the case may be. Pick your favorite Rumble, But he was a finish guy and an idea guy and really Vince's right-hand man throughout, the peak Hulkamania era. And, famously helped lay out Hogan Warrior, right, to make that something watchable.
Yeah.
He had a big hand in that match, which could have been a disaster if left to their own devices. And I'm talking move for move. Like, this is what you got. They say wrestling is not scripted. In this case, it was. Just to ensure that match wasn't a complete disaster. So, and there's numerous other examples, and a lot of his booking ideas and match layouts are the stuff that's just ended up being legendary and enduring moments of wrestling history. And as a wrestler, he was considered, one of the best work rate guys of his era in the 60s and 70s. And I know that he came to the WWF later in his career, the early 80s. And of course he had, the great match with Slaughter is instantly comes to mind. But he was older then. And I know that WWE Network is putting together a playlist of his stuff. The problem is it's going to be all WWF stuff from when he was aging, which, I mean, there's still great stuff. I mean, what year was that boot camp match?
81. I actually watched that earlier today. I hadn't seen it in years. I watched it today. And it's like, it's a 1981 wrestling match. So, I mean, obviously go in with the expectations that, yes, this one Wrestling Observer match of the year. It is 1981, but yeah, it's still pretty damn good. As far as like brawls go, it's not exciting. There's not a bunch of fucking kickouts and a bunch of back and forths and all that sort of stuff, but it's a damn fun match. And yeah, it's brutal as hell too. So no, go in with the expectations and realize that this is, wrestling from 40 years ago, in 81, but still really, really good stuff that you can find that one on YouTube, but I know that WWE Network, is putting together a lot of stuff. But like you said, it's going to be like, that Ted DiBiase, match. I watched that one as well. The North American Championship match. Again, I think it was 79, I want to say that match, maybe 78, 79, I forget which year exactly. So that's one of the issues is that, you're not getting, late 60s, early 70s, San Francisco Pat Patterson. You're getting a lot of, maybe Continental Wrestling, AWA and WWF Pat Patterson, which at that point he's already kind of winding down a little bit, but you can still definitely see it, though, even in those matches, that this is a guy who's just a tremendous worker.
Yeah, I know I saw the hype video that they put out, like 6 minutes of clips of what the playlist is going to be. I can't find the playlist itself though on the network, but the boot camp match is on there for sure. I know for sure. You just said you watched it, so
yes, yeah. That well, it's available via other means, but it's on YouTube, but it's not WWE that uploaded it. So
it's on the network though for sure.
It is 100% it is. Yeah.
So I don't know what else. I thought they would have this playlist up, but they don't. So we can't go over the matches. But again, it's going to be late career stuff. But obviously he still had a match of the year in 1981. So as late as 1981, he had what the Smarks voted as the best match in the world. So even at that point in his career, he was still a great worker, even though he was aging. And then he became part of the Office, obviously, and really pretty much almost until the day he died, he still, was in Vince's ear to some extent. I know his health got real bad towards the very end. And there were years where he was part-time and he had to disappear during the scandals for a while. And all of that, which in later years, he always denied that stuff, the casting couch stuff. And some of it's been debunked for sure. And the validity of Tom Cole. We don't want to get into all that. There's no time to get into all that. But for the most part, outside of that little blip, and then towards the end when he got real sick, a constant presence and a constant influence on Vince McMahon. And, pushing for a lot of things that Vince didn't want to do, like Bret Hart, like pushing Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and the smaller guys.
Yeah, because Vince was all in on Luger and Diesel and all that guys, and Pat's saying, no, that's old business. Let's go with Bret Hart. Let's go with Shawn Michaels. Let's go with, Mr. Perfect. Let's go with the smaller guys that can work. And that's, that was a big thing. I mean, all the way up until WrestleMania, where he's the special referee for the Iron Man match. I mean, those were his babies. Is those guys.
Yeah, and he's someone who Vince trusted, so a lot of his ideas would get through. And luckily, a lot of his ideas were good, because as we're seeing now with Bruce Pritchard, a lot of his ideas are getting through, and nearly every single one of them is terrible. And it's so important who earns Vince McMahon's trust and who he listens to, because that has such a great effect on what the on-screen product is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And Patterson didn't have a lot of his philosophies I didn't agree with. I mean, he was very interference heavy and, very heavy on, heel shenanigans and very strong leaning character work and those sorts of things. And it worked for that era though. Like the cartoon era of the mid to late 80s and early 90s WWE, I mean, it was perfect for that era. A lot of those ideas now I think are antiquated, but I don't think they were terrible for their time. Like the double Hebner angle on the main event. If they did that today, we'd tear it to shreds on this show. But that was a great legendary angle that did and led to tremendous business. So you can't really knock it. It worked for its time. And he's a guy who always had good ideas for their time, like we just talked about. When he felt it was time to turn things over to the workers, he talked Vince into it. Instead of continuing to try to rehash, like you mentioned, Diesel and whoever else was around that era, Lex Luger maybe, Adam Bomb, whoever you want to name from that era, who Vince is trying to find the next monster. Patterson convinced him, no, maybe we should try it this way now. So he was kind of always trying to stay ahead of the curve as well. So you can't overstate rather his importance to the history of WWF and the way that things have been done in that company since probably 1980. When was George Scott? Like 85 was George Scott gone, or 84?
I think, 84, 85. I forget the exact year, but
somewhere. We don't need to be. So anywhere from like 87 on, that I'll go with a safe date. Let's say 87 on, right through. Yeah. And right, like you said, what Rumble did he lay out? 2018?
Yeah, 2018. They brought him in. I know for a fact that he was brought in for that one. I think it was like a last minute thing too. I think like they were arguing over some finish. I forget the exact context of it, but I remember reading this not too long ago that there was, okay, how do we do that? And then they said, fuck it, just call Pat. And they called Pat and he came in and goes, probably like he's buy him some drinks, get him some vodka, and he's screaming about it. And then, 20 minutes later, an hour later, 2 hours later, they got it figured out. It's like, oh fuck yeah, he can figure it out. He's kind of there's a debate in the room. Well, Pat will figure it out. He booked fucking 25 of these Royal Rumbles. He could book another one for sure. So, I think that's, and one thing that I always thought and really admired about Pat Patterson is like you said, there weren't always great ideas, but one thing that he always seemed to do, and anytime you hear from people, and anytime you hear, discussions about him or people talking about his booking or any of that sort of stuff, and we talked about this with, Will Ospreay and Rev Pro, and the stuff that we like about pro wrestling. I love the idea that Pat Patterson sat down with Vince McMahon poolside most of the time, which is awesome too, and just said, all right, look, let's lay out the year. We're here. How do we get here? And they would, and that was a big part of what Pat would do, is he would be able to tell Vince, okay, no, here's our point, and here's where we're going to get to. Here's what we're going to do in between. We're going to run, 12 shows from this town and during this amount of time. So what are the match? Like, he got everything together. And that was what he wanted to do. That's how he came up. And I think that's an important factor into Pat Patterson as well. And you mentioned that he was, one of the few guys that had Vince's ear, that Vince trusted. And he might be the last guy ever until Vince, eventually passes away. He might be the last guy ever that has worldwide, wrestling history at his disposal that also has Vince's ear. Because Bruce Pritchard, he was in Texas for a little bit or whatever. He's a WWF guy. He's been in WWF since 1987. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't watch anything else. He only watches WWF. You know what I mean? Like, that's all he fucking knows. He doesn't know anything about any other company.
And let's be honest. He's really just telling Vince what he thinks Vince wants to hear.
Exactly. He's not challenging Vince. He's not, Pat was a guy who could pull from Kentucky, could pull from Alabama, could pull from AWA, could pull from Montreal, he could pull from New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he could pull from all these different places that a lot of other guys, San Francisco, Roy Shire, and he learned from some of the best bookers ever. Yeah, Boston, of course. Yeah, he's got Mad Dog Vachon at his disposal. He's got Roy Shire at his disposal. He's got Vern Gagne at his. He's a guy that was a world-traveled pro wrestler that ended up in that position with Vince's ear, so that he could say, hey, well, what about this finish that I remember that we did and yada yada or whatever? Sell it to Vince and get it done. That's important because it led to not everything kind of seeming the same, and some new ideas and different ideas and ideas that weren't just kind of regurgitated stuff. Whereas, these days and probably in the future and over the last few years, it's just, basically the same overall concepts, just regurgitated because it's people that only know one type of pro wrestling talking about the same type of pro wrestling and booking the same type of pro wrestling. And it never advances, it never moves, it's never unique, it's never different, because everybody in that building that has Vince's ear, and there's hundreds of guys that are employed that have great minds of the wrestling. Do you think you think Vince McMahon's gonna say, Adam, pal, how should we finish this match? He doesn't give two shits what Adam Pearce thinks about anything.
Yeah.
And that's like nobody, the people that have Vince's ear, Pat might be the last guy ever that will have all that experience. And that isn't just a yes man, that will challenge him, that will, offer ideas from the wide range of pro wrestling. And that was important. I mean, that's what made this company special. And that's why so many of us, became lifelong wrestling fans because of this company. And I think Pat plays just a tremendous, tremendous role in that. And that's just behind the scenes, like we're talking about. And you and I obviously don't know a ton about his in-ring because, we weren't there for most of it, or we weren't alive for most of it. But it's and I think
anything.
Oh, go ahead.
Anything I ever watched has been good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, the guy could very obviously go. Like we said, even into the 80s, he could still go. So yeah, I mean, there is footage out there of this guy. But to speak to a point you just made about having all this worldwide experience and bringing different ideas to the table, it reminded me of something Dave Meltzer talked about when he did his audio on Patterson the other day, or I guess earlier today or whatever it was, that he did all of those Iron Man matches in San Francisco, and he did a famous one with Don Morocco that went 65 minutes because it went to an overtime. And that was the idea behind the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart Iron Man match at WrestleMania, which also went to overtime. So that's a perfect example of something from that he remembered that he did that was successful in his career, that he either saw or participated in, and then he brought that idea to the WWF, doing a very similar match to what he, did against Morocco in San Francisco. So that speaks exactly to the point you're talking about.
One thing, and I saw this tweet, and I believe, I'm almost positive. Forgive me if I've misattributed this to who it was, but I think it was Trevor Dame who hosts the through the years the ROH retrospective podcast at Trevor Dame, who I think had a very interesting discussion about Pat Patterson, and he said, is Pat Patterson one of the only people? And it's an interesting question. There's some caveats and there's some interesting debate that can happen with it, but is Pat Patterson one of the few guys ever that is a Hall of Famer for two completely separate parts of pro wrestling? A Hall of Famer in wrestling and a Hall of Famer as a booker. And not really ever overlapping the two as well. This isn't a situation where, the top star is a booker and books himself in big, important spots. This is a guy who wrestled, then stopped wrestling and became an office guy, and then has really claim at a Hall of Fame career in both of those.
There's probably others, but there's not many.
Yeah.
Now, he did book during his wrestling career. He booked for Roy Shire and he booked for other people. But yeah, I get the idea here because his WWF office career is a Hall of Fame career, even without considering anything else. And his wrestling career is a Hall of Fame career without considering anything else. So how many other people? I mean, maybe Giant Baba? Do you count the comedy openers that he was doing at the end of his career? As
that's a good. That's one of the first ones that I thought of because I wouldn't count that. I mean, yeah, he's wrestling just because he's there, but like he's not an integral part of the actual in ring of All Japan during his what I would call his Hall of Fame booking years. He's not an integral part of that company. So no, I think he counts for sure. Yeah,
and then there's probably some other obvious ones that we're forgetting, or maybe there isn't. Maybe there aren't a lot of guys who there's a clear line. The problem is no one retires. Pat Patterson retired.
Right. Early in his life too, dude. When you look at how old Pat Patterson was, when he was one of the stooges in the Attitude Era, when he's just this old decrepit stooge, he's like 3 years older than the Undertaker is right now. You know what I mean? Like he's like 56, 57 years old as he's like this relic of a past, and it's like he's barely older than these guys that are regulars still.
Yeah, I mean, well,
and that was 10 years, that was 15 years into his retirement too. You know what I mean? He stopped wrestling and many years before that.
It just speaks to modern wrestlers or like modern athletes. They stay in better shape and they stay in better shape longer. And in wrestling where it's worked, it's like since it's not quote unquote real skills, you can keep doing it longer. So it's like there's so many guys that are in their 40s, late 40s, and even 50s. There's people, and we talk about them all the time. We talked about Ogawa last week, who are just just as good as they were when they were 28. In some cases, they're better. We talk about that all the time, but he was in an era where they drank and they were and the road was not easy, and the road owned these people, and they lived hard lives and they lived fast lives, and yeah, you were fucking washed up a lot sooner back then. So I think that has a lot to do with it too. But yeah, that's crazy to think about, where he was retired for so long, and he's like the same age as the Undertaker is now during that terrible Stooge stuff, which was awful. I mean, that stuff was terrible.
The comedy of it, okay, I will say, if you go back and watch some of it, Pat's awesome in it. Like, the material is terrible, and it's just like thinly veiled, homosexual jokes directed at Pat Patterson. But he's great in it. He's tremendous in it. Because it's just fucking great.
Which we should mention, an openly gay man in the 60s and 70s as a star in pro wrestling.
Professional wrestling, which, as of, even 2020, maybe now more than ever, but yeah, it's probably the last 5 or 6 years that, being gay or being in any way different than the norm in pro wrestling has been like an accepted thing. That dude, for 40 years, for multiple decades, was an openly gay pro wrestler that would walk in these locker rooms and talk to these people and discuss, and everybody knew. And I mean, like I know WWE did something in their Legends house a few years ago where he came out as gay. It was like, I mean, he wrote a book, he wrote a book like years ago about it. It's like they're like, this week on Legends House, Pat Patterson reveals that he's gay, and it's like, okay.
That's just reality TV bullshit. Yeah, but
everybody knew. Everybody knew for years and years and years and years.
And I didn't know this until today, but apparently Roy Shire was a homophobe. I had no idea.
That's what I mean. And fuck yeah. How many guys were homophobes then? I mean, let's be honest. We're talking pro wrestling in the 60s and the 70s. Like that.
Yeah, and he worked for him for years, and he was his booker. Like, this is a man who, as Meltzer described it, hated homosexuals, the word he used. But Pat Patterson was his booker and one of his top stars for all those years because, I guess money trumps all. But that's the kind of shit that he had to deal with, and like you're saying, it's not even easy today. But we're talking about 1965, so, there's that whole aspect to his career too that, we almost didn't even bring up. Right down to, like you're saying, the thinly veiled gay jokes during, the Attitude Era, that he had to put up with. Now, he may have been good-natured about it. I have no idea. I mean, that's, who knows? But, yeah, that's a whole nother aspect to his career that needs to be addressed. Someone in the chat room brought up Bill Watts as another contender for that split career double Hall of Fame. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I would say that Bill Watts was a Hall of Fame wrestler and a Hall of Fame promoter. I think that's fair. But yeah, there's not a ton of them. I mean, if you want to count Baba.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like a question where immediately you'd go like, no way. And then you're like, I mean, yeah, with the caveat of like, you can't be an active, because people would bring up like a Dusty Rhodes, but it's like, yeah, but like the entire time that he's booking himself, and not really I would call like a Hall of Fame booker in that sense. So yeah, I don't think he counts. And there's a lot of guys that are easy to name, guys that did both jobs or were important executives and also wrestlers. But very few, like you said, where if you separated those two careers, they'd be a Hall of Famer in both of those, two completely independent careers.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a ton off the top of my head. There's a lot of guys who maybe were very solid pro wrestlers and then Hall of Fame promoters, or solid bookers or promoters, but Hall of Fame wrestling. Yeah, it's a tough combo for a lot of different reasons. But Patterson got very sick at the end. It was kind of disturbing listening to the details. He had lost like 60 pounds.
Yeah.
So he was 79 years old.
79. Yeah.
So, but again, I mean, he always seemed older than he was, like you're saying. Like, it felt like he was always in his 60s, but he wasn't.
Right. You're going to watch those 1981 matches and he looks almost the same as he would in the year 2000. He's got the white hair, pretty much from day. It's a little more blonde in those days, but it's it's pretty close. And he's kind of always had a gut, and he always kind of just looked like he was like 55 years old. So even until like the last few years, he started looking a little older. But I don't think a guy who definitely you would have thought in the year 2000 that he was 80 and he was 59. So like
and Legends House. I mean, Okerlund is dead, Patterson's dead, Piper's dead.
Jesus, I never thought of that. Good God, Jimmy Hart's still alive.
Yeah, Jimmy Hart, Tony Atlas, Duggan. I think the rest are still alive. Oh no, the ring now. Finkel's dead.
Oh shit! Right? Yeah. Fuck.
So that's 4, and then you have Hart, Atlas, Duggan. Is that it? There are some guys, right? So
did we lose? We lost. God damn, we lost Okerlund. Or no, we lost Finkel and Patterson in the same year too, right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So
it's gonna get used to this. Unfortunately, this is.
Well, Rich, people die.
People do
That's
die.
True.
That's true. You wrestle with this every night when you put your you close your eyes.
I do.
So,
But it's it never it never stops. But the Legends House did produce that tremendous. I mean, they took that that piece of footage of him doing karaoke of Frank Sinatra's "My Way" from Legends House and made that part of that tremendous.
Oh my God, that video. They played it before NXT. It is also available on YouTube as well. If you just look up WWE Pat Patterson, go out of your way to watch it. That is
it's so
standing
good.
Ovation stuff. It is incredible.
I mean, my eyes welled up.
Yeah, and I say with me, it's the Sinatra. It's using him singing it juxtaposed. I mean, it is like I never met the man. I don't know much of but yeah, it's like at the end of that, if you don't get choked up a little bit at that end as he's singing "My Way," as I did it my way, it's like, oh fuck, like Jesus Christ.
He's doing a duet with Frank Sinatra, and there's footage of him from Legends House doing the karaoke, and then the footage of his career, and they just did such a classy job with that.
Yeah, that was
I
tremendous.
We pile on this company a lot, and for good reason, but that they did a really classy job with that, a tremendous job. Did you know that "My Way" is allegedly the most played song at funerals and wakes? So there's a little piece of trivia for you.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard it but I also did not grow up in the East Coast. I can imagine everybody that gets buried in New York and New Jersey probably has that song played.
Are you kidding me? Every Italian guy who dies in the Northeast,
right?
That's the song he wants played at his funeral. But yeah,
it's a good song. I mean, it's a great song. I mean, it's a tearjerker.
Let me tell you,
I'm not like a. There's some people I know, and it's sacrilege. I have one buddy who's like my age but Italian, and he fucking. I mean, he'll come to blows if I say that this in front of him. But like, I could take or leave Sinatra most times. It's
you know what? We're gonna come to blows.
He's fine. He's okay. But I will say that song is fucking. When he hits, it's like fucking incredible.
Yeah. That song, that's a great song. Sing along while read lyrics to that song. It'll get you. You'll be like, I could see why people pick this for their funerals.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Tremendous song. How about the Elvis version? Maybe you like the Elvis version.
Nah, I mean, no time for Elvis. So.
Nah. Gotta the Elvis version is good. I mean, even as a big Sinatra mark, I gotta admit, Elvis did a nice job with it. All the other versions can fucking kick rocks, but Elvis, I'll give him a pass. I'll accept the Memphis territory version of the song along with the New York territory version of the song. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I used to do that all the time when I traveled for work. Like I would tell people where I'm going based on what wrestling territory it was, and they would never understand what I was saying. Like I'd be like, I'm headed out to the Geigel territory next week, so I'm not going to be around. And I'd forget that I was talking to like a civilian.
Yeah, I'll be in the Poffo. I'll be in the Outlaw Poffo region. So I'll see like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude?
Right. And they're like, Geigel territory. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to Kansas next week. I apologize. You don't speak wrestling. But But yeah, that was a tremendous. I'm sure they'll play it before Raw.
Yeah. They're going to lay it. I mean, this is one of those guys that, and I'm sure internally in that company, I mean, this is not the end of the Pat Patterson stuff. You're going to get a lot of Pat Patterson stuff because this is one of Vince's best friends. I mean, right hand man, a guy that was with the company forever, a lifer as much as lifers can be. I mean, yeah, this is a big one. This is definitely hurting all of those guys backstage, and he touched a lot of the NXT guys as well. We forgot to mention that is in the last few years of his life, he became a big sort of guy in training guys in NXT, helping guys in NXT, giving people ideas. I remember one of my favorite matches ever. Sami Zayn beating Neville for the title. And who's the first guy to kind of greet Sami Zayn as he wins the titles is Pat Patterson, in his windbreaker, his NXT windbreaker, coming out and hugging Sami Zayn. And there was quotes from Sami Zayn saying how important he was to his career and stuff, as a guy from that area, from that region. And yeah, so he's a guy who touched those people's lives as well. So yeah, just there's not like, and you saw it from social media. I mean, there's so many people, so many generations of pro wrestlers, from The Rock to guys coming up in NXT today to guys 40, 50 years prior. That all can kind of speak to Pat Patterson and the impact that he had on him. So,
yeah, I found a highlight reel on the network, but I don't know if this is going to be the match playlist that they're eventually going to put together. So I don't know. There's a 1984 match against Kamala. How about that?
Yeah, I watched that. It's interesting. It's fine. It's okay. I don't know why they picked that one. But. Yeah.
It's because they don't have a ton of his footage. We talked about this. Like, they don't have the San Francisco stuff. They don't have the Montreal stuff. I mean, what do they have? They have their own stuff, and they have the AWA stuff.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of pickings from there. So,
and they're going to work in the Attitude Era stuff because they think that's what people want, and they think that's what people remember. So there's really not a ton more to choose from. So you're going to get stuff like that. So, but yeah, Patterson's greatest matches, I guess maybe they aren't putting together a playlist, and maybe it's just going to be that 6-minute highlight video that I watched. Maybe I got it wrong because I do see that on here now.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's only 6 minutes long. So, who's running this thing? I mean, they should have had something up within hours, with the best stuff they have from this guy at their disposal, capped off with that Sergeant Slaughter match. Matches in full. I mean, what are they doing? That's what this thing is for.
Yeah, and that's like, and not to be crass, but anybody that works in a media organization or whatever, I mean, you do that stuff every year. There's somebody who gets together and says, okay, who's just in case, here's these old guys. Let's get stuff ready so that if and when they pass away, you have a press release ready, you have the videos ready, you have the graphics ready, you have all that stuff. It's terrible. Like, you hate to do that, but that's part of the job. I mean, doing it at a newspaper, you have to do it. I mean, it's part of it. And you're, like you said, the WWE Network. Plus, it's the freaking WWE Network. It should be easy to type in Pat Patterson, click 2 buttons and hit save, and then boom, there's a Pat Patterson playlist that's been made. Like, that should be done. Like, that should take 10 minutes. Press release should come down to some guy and he goes, oh shit, Pat Patterson passed away. Okay, let's get a thing up there. And then, yeah, it takes 15 minutes to find every Pat Patterson match that you guys have. And then maybe, ask somebody, hey, what are the better ones, or which ones should we cycle in? Or, there's already a rating system in their, CMS that says, okay, this match is good. So put this one up or whatever. But yeah, we're 2 days later now and it's like, yeah, there's fucking nothing. So. It sucks. Yeah. There was a while there where they were pretty good at this sort of stuff. And now they've gotten away from that even. So I don't know what they do anymore.
So what they have on here is the street fight / alley fight / I think we called it the boot camp match, but I think, from May 4th, 81, they've got highlights of that. And then so this will tell you at least what they have. Then there's a 1980 match against Ken Patera from September 1980. And then a tag match with Dusty Rhodes against the Wild Samoans from 1980. Looks like MSG. So that's an interesting match, if nothing else. I'd love to watch that in full, but who knows if they're going to give it to us. And then DiBiase versus Patterson for the North American title. You talked about that one from 1979. You already mentioned that one. And then what do I have next? Oh, now this is what I'm talking about. Pat Patterson versus Baron Mikel Cicluna from 1977. That's probably awful.
It's not good. It's so bad. Yeah, I watched. There's a little bit of that on YouTube, or I watched that playlist video that you're talking about. I think it's the match in full because it's literally like 45 seconds and it's really, really bad. It's as bad as you would assume.
Scicluna stinks.
He is. I've never seen him before, but he is a horrendous pro wrestler. Just really, really bad. He looks like a plumber too. He looks like a bad plumber, not even like a good plumber.
Scicluna is like the perfect example of that horrible late 70s WWF period where they had all those really big guys that just couldn't go. You know, it was just slow and methodical and shitty. He was like the poster boy for that. He stunk. He's in the Hall of Fame because he was one of, Vince Sr.'s guys, their Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame. But, he was never even really pushed. I mean, that's a terrible... If that's one of the top 6 matches you're featuring in a playlist, I mean, you're either lost or you just don't have a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the Pat Patterson again. I'd love to say go watch this or go watch that, but I don't know how much you can be able to find. So you can try to search around online. I did a little bit. There is not a whole lot on YouTube still left of kind of classic Pat Patterson stuff. So unfortunately, not a lot you can watch in ring, but watch Royal Rumble and go watch the Royal Rumble 1992. Go watch any random Royal Rumble. You'll see his impact from there for sure. Go watch the main event. I watched that not that long ago. The two Hebners. That it still fucking rules. So it's so awesome.
The cage match inmates are not seeing that Slaughter match through 1981 eyes. I can tell you that.
Oh no! What's it on cage match?
6.58.
Yeah, that's about where it would be. Yeah,
they're not crushing it, but
it's fine.
They're giving it 3.25.
It wouldn't upset this year's match of the year list. I will say that it definitely does that. And Matthew in our chat room reminded us first Intercontinental Champion ever won that grueling tournament in Rio de Janeiro. So
who could forget? I'm waiting for the footage of that.
Yeah, maybe that'll be the drop on the network. Is we've been sitting on this footage for years, but here it is finally in full, the Intercontinental Championship tournament from Rio de Janeiro. So.
When I was a kid, that's the only reason I knew Rio de Janeiro existed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because that's the weird, fucked up childhood that I always had, too, is, reading through the PWI almanacs or whatever and seeing many titles decided in Rio de Janeiro, too. A hotbed for title changes and tournament finals in those days.
Hey, is any of his stuff on New Japan World?
That's, I actually, as you were speaking, because I was on Cage Match, and I saw that Seiki Sakaguchi match has a few ratings on it. And I was actually about to fire it up to see if I can find old Pat Patterson. So let me see if he shows up anywhere.
I've been watching a lot of the New Japan stuff from that era.
No, it doesn't look like he's there anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't come across him at all. So that's a shame because I don't think I've ever seen him wrestle in New Japan.
Yeah, I talked to Pat Patterson. Yeah, nothing for that. So sucks.
Are you using WEX extension?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just making sure you're on top of things.
Oh yeah. That one always makes the search function actually work on New Japan World, so it's important.
Well, you watch that street fight with Slaughter in '81, and it wins match of the year, and you got to consider it's a 1981 match.
Right.
It really hammers home and exemplifies just how shocking Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask were the next year to those eyes. This is why I can never agree with people who call those matches overrated. Because you place those Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask matches into that context, and there's no way you can call those matches overrated. It's crazy to even hold that opinion, and it's an opinion that really bothers me a lot. And by the way, I just went back and rewatched all of them as I go through the early 80s New Japan stuff, for pleasure. And they do hold up. Like, people have said those matches are overrated for so long that now they're underrated. Like, they're underrated now because people have bashed those matches. They're good matches. There's still stuff in that matches that blow you away when you watch.
Oh yeah, they're good
holy
as hell.
Shit.
Yeah. Anybody that says they're overrated are out of their fucking mind. Like you plop them onto a show in 2020 and they'd still be a good match on these shows. They'd be a great match on shows today. And that is unbelievable given the context of the time. Again, like you said, you go, you watch other stuff on, these WWE MSG shows. It's fun stuff. Like, it's interesting stuff. I like it. But it's, it's wobbly leg selling. It's, punch, kick, wobbly leg. Like, it's just that sort of stuff. Or, the shaking of the arm. And you get that a lot in this 81 boot camp match or whatever. It's like fun, but a lot of it is just like, exaggerated punches, and then Sergeant Slaughter like waving his arms back and forth as he wobbles, to fall on the ground or whatever. And that's fine. Like, that's what pro wrestling was in those days. But then, yeah, like you're saying, to compare that to Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid, and it's like these dudes working a match that could fit perfectly in, to 2019 or 2020 or whatever. Yeah, it's mind-boggling to people that say they're overrated. So,
or even compare it to, Baron Mikel Cicluna.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's like two top-level athletes just doing stuff you've never seen before compared to, your neighbor, your fat neighbor.
I mean, compare Patterson and Slaughter to even.
Oh yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
To what was going on around them at that time as well. So it's like, and the thing is, the Tiger Mask Dynamite Kid match that won, the MSG match that won Match of the Year, is like one of my least favorite of the series. That match won Match of the Year because everybody got a hold of that tape in 1982. You know what I mean? Because that was the big tape that was going around in the early days of VCRs, but the matches they had in Japan were way better than the MSG match. The MSG match, everybody got the tape, and it was the first time people were seeing it. That was the big key to that match and why it won Match of the Year when it did. It wasn't the best match of that series. And it may not have even have been the best match, and it wasn't the best match that year because those two guys had better matches that year. So, anyway, I don't know how we got off on that, but just, when it comes to older footage like that, you have to put it in the context of its time. You really do. We talk about it all the time. Frank Home Run Baker had the nickname Home Run, and he would hit 8 home runs a year.
Right. I mean, 12 one year. That was the big year.
And his literal nickname was Home Run because he was such a feared power hitter. And I don't think he ever hit 10 home runs in a season. Maybe he hit 10 or 11 a couple times, but so you got to put people in the context of their era. It takes nothing away from the fact that he was a great home run hitter because he was for his time. So that's how you get from Pat Patterson to Frank Home Run Baker.
Right. Only on this show you get Home Run Baker and Pat Patterson discussions. So that is that. Sticking with NXT and WWE War Games this Sunday, Joe. Are you ready for NXT TakeOver War Games? Yay.
So ready.
You're just you cannot wait to talk about Team Shotzi versus Team Candice. You got Shotzi Blackheart, Ember Moon, Rhea Ripley, and Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, and Toni Storm. All joking aside, this has actually been a pretty good build. The Team Candice is pretty interesting. Team Shotzi kind of thrown together semi last minute. But I mean, all in all, like I'm sure they're gonna bust their ass. They're gonna try really hard. I can't say I'm more excited for the women's one because I am a little bit more excited for the men's one. Full disclosure, like NXT TV has like kind of been boring as fuck lately. Particularly the last few episodes as I kind of, binge watched them in preparation for the show. With that said, like this card looks pretty solid. Like these two War Games matches look solid as hell. It's just the TV is just boring as hell. It's really hard to get excited about the actual build to these matches, but on paper they look pretty solid. I will say that. But what are your thoughts on the women's War Game? Team Shotzi, Team Candice.
Well, I mean, in both War Games matches, the babyface team has the advantage, which is very weird. I could see doing it in one of the matches just to make it a little different, or if you have an angle planned, if someone's going to turn, if someone's going to get injured. But in both matches, I mean, the psychology there is just all thrown off. And I'm all for doing things different, And it was always so predictable when the Horsemen would win the coin flip. That became a meme, Jay Dillon was the greatest coin flip predictor in the history of the world. That was, something that people just laughed, but it made the psychology of the matches work because you want those heels to have that advantage and you want to do that long beatdown, and then the babyface comes in and starts to clean house when the odds are evened, and then the heel comes in and you get another long beatdown. That's the proper psychology for these matches. What the fuck are they going to do where both matches have the babyface with the advantage? You can't do the same injury angle in both matches. So, and you're not just going to let the baby faces have the advantage. So how do you lay these out? How do you book them? this is something where Pat Patterson would say, you've lost your minds. You can't have both of these matches where the baby faces have the advantage. So it's just weird to me.
Yeah, and they did, of course, ladder matches determine the winners of both, because WWE is absolutely and completely addicted to ladder matches at this point.
Yeah.
I
Ladder
tweeted out about it earlier,
now,
but yeah, 10% of all WWE ladder matches ever have taken place this year alone. And we have a TLC coming up in 2 weeks.
So the number's only going to go up.
Yeah, 12 this year so far.
It's to the point where they're using ladder matches to determine stipulations for other matches. Where like ladder matches used to be a big blow off or something you do in a big feud, or now it's just another step to determine some other stipulation. It's crazy. But I don't remember if it was here or on the Winter is Coming instant reaction. It's like they're doing that because they've been a bit of a ratings draw.
Yeah.
It bumps their quarters. So now they're overdoing them. And what's going to happen is they're just going to burn them out. I mean, they've burnt them out with people like us a long time ago, but you're going to burn out ladder matches with the general audience. And maybe they have already to some extent. How could you get excited about ladder match? The ladder match last night was Shotzi Blackheart against
Raquel Gonzalez.
And I think that even fans in general have turned on the idea that ladder matches are just, you're automatically going to get a great match. Like, we turned on that idea a long time ago, right? But I look on Grapple, and these two had a ladder match last night, and I watched it. Did you watch it?
I did, yeah.
The Grapple average for that ladder match main event is 2.68.
Man, well, I mean, it wasn't good, so I can't, I can't disagree with them.
I don't know if I'd go that low, but I wouldn't. It wasn't like a 4-star match either.
No.
And it used to be ladder matches because they were rare, and you would see things you don't normally see. How excited would you get for the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania every year when they were new?
Yeah. Oh, my favorite match. I was a ladder match fiend. Like I when they had that DVD, they came out with a DVD of the ladder matches. It was just the WWE ladder matches DVD. I fucking bought that thing the first day it came out. Like I was what Dave Meltzer is today, where he's just an extra 3 stars for a ladder match, a baseline of 3 stars for a ladder match, of 3 or 4 stars. No, dude, I fucking loved ladder matches, man. Those were my favorite matches growing up. I thought they were so unique and so different. And now I don't give 2 shits about a ladder match. I groan when I hear a ladder match is coming. I'm like, God, there's so many of them. I've personally live seen like 15 ladder matches in my life. Like I'm over it. I'm done.
I think fans are starting to be over it too. I mean, because maybe if that was the only ladder match all year, people would have enjoyed it more. But we're so numb to it because we've seen every spot, and we've seen 10% of them that have ever taken place this year. And it's like, how can you keep getting excited about they're just another match now? It's like no different than a fucking tag team match because they do them so often. So yeah, what a bizarre way to determine
the advantage. WCW used the coin flip. WWE uses a ladder match to determine it. It's just like,
yeah,
the human capital of a ladder match to determine the advantage too is wild, especially in front of no fans. Like the year that they decide to have 12, or fucking it'll be 14, I think, when the year's over. The year that they decide, they might fit a few in there at the end of the year too. The year they decide to have 14 fucking ladder matches is the year where they don't have fans. It's just like, what I mean? It's there. Go out there. And unfortunately, the wrestlers have this expectation that they need to go out there and bust their ass and take big bumps and do that sort of stuff. But like you said, those bumps don't matter anymore, and people don't care about those bumps anymore. And
they're not even in front of fans this year.
Right. So you're killing yourself. You're taking these giant bumps, and for what? I mean, for nothing. It's bizarre. But anyway,
no one will ever remember that match last night. And we did this exercise a few weeks ago. We don't even remember the ladder matches from this year. We couldn't name them all. It shouldn't be that way. But, when you do them nearly every week, this is what happens. Now, Shotzi Blackheart, I mean, they love her. I mean, it appears she's getting a big push.
Oh, she's past Rhea Ripley. I mean, you can look at the optics of the final shot of NXT is, Shotzi, well, it's Team Shotzi. I mean, first off, it's Shotzi Blackheart at the top of the ladder. She's flexing, and then there's Ember Moon and Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai just kind of around her as she's on top of the ladder. So yeah, there's no doubt that she is the most pushed commodity, woman's commodity in that company right now for sure.
Yeah, and Io Shirai is a proven ratings draw, and all of her quarter hours do well. And Rhea Ripley, well, she learned a very important lesson by losing a feud to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Could you believe that quote?
I could, yes. I shouldn't have believed that quote, but I absolutely did. I will honestly, of all the there's
well, hold on, hold that thought.
Go ahead.
Let's catch. We assume people know, so let's catch people up. So Triple H had his media call today for War Games, and somebody, I don't know who it is, but I'd like to pat them on the back for asking a good question. Somebody asked him about, follow-up on his promise that they had big plans for Rhea Ripley, even though she lost to Charlotte, and it was going to lead to something bigger down the line, which, we knew was complete bullshit and was never going to happen, and we laughed at it at the time. But whoever this reporter was called him out on it and said, well, what's going on? And Triple H basically conceded that there are no future plans for Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. He blamed the pandemic. Which this entire feud has taken place during the pandemic. So that he's talking out of his ass.
Their blow-off was in front of no fans at WrestleMania. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, WrestleMania had no fans. So the whole feud has taken place during the pandemic. So you know right there he's talking out of his ass. Okay? And just making excuses on the fly. And he said, yeah, so we're probably not going to get back to that. And those plans were blown up because there were no plans. He's showing his ass. And it's okay because Rhea has learned very valuable lessons with this whole experience, to which, of course, he didn't expand on. What lesson is there to be learned? That this company will completely, blow your push every step of the way? That you're just going to be fed to Charlotte Flair every step? Here's what this is what the lesson they told Rhea Ripley was. You and every other woman in this company solely exist to be fed to Charlotte Flair. That's the lesson. We nailed it at the time. That's exactly what went down here. And I won't expose who it was because it'll cause headlines. But let's just say that we spoke to someone about this. You remember this, Rich?
I do, yeah.
We spoke about this Charlotte Flair Rhea Ripley thing with a major power player in pro wrestling, okay, outside of WWE, and they were completely perplexed at how all of this went down. And agreed with everything we had to say, and we had a long conversation with this person, and they couldn't believe how badly this was botched. And we all laughed and knew that this was never going to lead to anything. It's just a disgrace how badly they've botched her, and now they're framing it as, oh, these are valuable lessons. This company is warped. Whatever happened to just pushing people who have potential? Why do we have to beat them down and try to teach them lessons? And what happens is it shatters their. How many people have we seen come through over the years, and it completely shatters their confidence?
Right. A lot of people. The problem that happens a lot of times is people will kind of retcon it and be like, "Oh, can you believe that they were going to push Zack Ryder, or they were going to push Dolph Ziggler, or they were going to push all these people?" And it's like, dude, you don't understand. These people were hot. Like these people were like Zack Ryder's the perfect example. That dude, for whatever it was, yeah, I agree. In hindsight, it's kind of ridiculous to think, oh shit, they should have pushed Zack Ryder. But that dude, when he had all the confidence in the world, when that Long Island IZ stuff was going on, when the YouTube series was going on, when he was a big part of Raw, when he would come out and get the biggest reactions every night, that dude was working like a mile a minute. Like you could see it. You could see it in his body language. That dude knew, hey, I'm doing it. They told me to grab the brass ring, and I grabbed that brass ring, and I'm on Raw, and I'm getting the biggest shots of the night, and I'm doing all that sort of stuff. And then you contrast that to where he was 2 years ago and where he is now. That dude's confidence shattered, done, never to become again. Dolph Ziggler, same deal. There was a time when Dolph was like the hottest guy in wrestling, and it was like so ridiculous that they were not just not going with this guy as like a major part of their company or whatever. And now today he's just kind of like, yeah, I don't really watch wrestling. Wrestling kind of sucks. It's just a job. And it's like, dude, this guy loved this guy was bouncing around the ring and bumping like a madman and going out there and having great matches. He beats Del Rio. He cashes in the briefcase. Like, yeah, they beat you down. And there's a lot of people that will go back and look at these old pushes and go, oh my God, I can't believe everybody wanted this guy to get pushed. And it's like, yeah, but when we all said that dude had all the confidence in the world. And Rhea Ripley at like 22 or 23 years old was just like fucking. She had everything that you could want. I cannot imagine anybody in that building thinking, nah, she doesn't have, we can't do it because of blank. Like, what more do you need? Like, what else did you need out of her?
Well, you got to teach them lessons. Listen, and then here's what happens.
Stupid.
You beat the confidence out of them, and you also force the audience to lose faith in them.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things are what occurs when you're teaching people lessons, because they think they could just flip the switch down the line. But because they've botched it with so many people, you've taught the audience not to care about people when you de-push them. So even if they somehow retain their confidence as performers, you're doing damage with the audience. Right.
Because we always get there's people that will go on Twitter and say, oh, well, let it play out or let it see where it goes. And we're like, no, we know where it's going to go. And we're always right. We're 99.9999% right when we say, nah, you can tell when you watch this company for your entire fucking life because of Pat Patterson. Like we said, we get it. When Rhea Ripley lost at WrestleMania, you and I said, well, she's fucking done. That's it for her. And everybody said, no, let it play out, or let them tell their story. And we're like, no. We get it. We've watched this company for 30, 40 years. We understand where this is going. We know what's going to happen here. Don't fucking tell us. Don't explain. Don't McMansplain us. We know. You know what I mean? We know what's going to happen here.
There was no fucking story. And today was the proof. Oh, the pandemic got in the way. The whole feud took place during the pandemic. The whole fucking thing.
Yeah, did she lose an In Your House match to Charlotte in front of it was called In Your House, because of...
The WrestleMania match was during the pandemic. That kicked off the feud. Right. The whole feud took place in the body of the pandemic. He's lying. There was never a plan. It's just, he said that at the time to get people off their back for the fucking shitty book. Now listen, it may not have even been his decision. It probably came from Vince. So he had the cover for that shit. I'm sure if he had his way, Rio would have maybe won that feud or been 50-50 in it at minimum. They love the 50-50. It would have been better than this. She got the floor mopped with her. She lost the three-way with Io and she took the fall.
Right.
They couldn't even have, you know what I mean? They used her as the person to take the fall when they took the title off of Charlotte. It's just, Charlotte beat her for the title and then didn't even have to eat the fall to lose it. It's crazy, and this is what they do. And they frame it as teaching a lesson. It's comical at this point.
It's so stupid.
It's comical. And look no further than Braun Strowman. This is what I mean when the viewers lose. Does anyone view Braun Strowman as a top-line star anymore?
Hell no.
Of course not, because they blew it by teaching him a lesson. We got to humble him. We got to make sure he understood. Yeah, well, you blew it. Now no one believes in him, and now you can't push him. You know what Braun Strowman is now? He's what the Big Show was for 15 years. A guy on the roster who's big, who you're going to give the occasional push, but he's lost so much, and he's done so much comedy and everything else that no one's going to take him seriously. You're not going to draw money with him. So, history repeats. So, there's Rhea. Just a face in the match, and Shotzi is blowing right past her. They'll teach Shotzi a lesson.
Of course, yeah.
She got to be taught a lesson. For Ellen, can we talk about her promos for a second? Can we never let her speak?
Do we have to? Let's not. How about we not?
Oh my God. It's just never let her speak. If someone can't talk, don't let them talk. It's pretty simple. Just let her be spooky. Remember when she was spooky and had the contact lenses and just looked cool and wrestled good? Now they have her talk, and it's like it destroys all of the aura about her because she's so terrible. Just let her go out there and look cool and wrestle. I mean, geez, this isn't hide the negatives, accentuate the positives.
You'll drive yourself crazy if you try to.
And Tony Storm's a heel now for some reason. Yeah, had some momentum going as a baby face coming back and everything. It's Turner heel.
She's evil. Yeah.
I don't understand.
They have, when you look at the people that they have heel on this heel side, you have Tony Storm, like a great babyface wrestler. You have Candice LeRae, the most babyface wrestler that's ever babyfaced, and then Dakota Kai, who was like a tremendous babyface as well. But they don't know how to book heels, so
No.
They don't know how to book baby faces, so they have to turn all these people heel. It's
and they just turn people for the fuck of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, Tony turned for no reason. Yeah, there was no justification.
The Dakota Kai turn was good.
Yeah, that was awesome. That ruled. I'll never
Tony
put
Storm
that
turn.
down.
Like, what's the point of the Tony Storm turn? Why would anyone hate her? She was in NXT for like a month. You know, it's like, where's the built up like, she's not this built up babyface commodity that broke fans' hearts. They barely got to know her. So what's the point of the turn? I know it's rhetorical. I don't expect you to answer me.
I don't know. She doesn't owe you any explanation. I don't owe you fans
basically
any explanation.
Yeah. So the men's match, I mean, again, the baby faces have the edge. Speaking of promos.
Oh, dude, I'm way into this match because of one man, and yeah, you just said his name right there.
He's the best promo in the entire company. Am I off base?
He's one of the best promos in wrestling.
He is.
He's fucking tremendous.
And you know why he's the best promo in this company?
Because he speaks like a human being.
Yes, he doesn't cut WWE promos.
He has cadence. He has normal human cadence.
Normal pro wrestler cadence that goes back decades. He's just a shit talker, and he's making no attempts to be cool. He doesn't want you to like him. He tells you you're in your mother's basement. He uses the lowest level insults. You know what I mean? On purpose, because it's like, we're way past the mother's basement thing. But he's using that because he knows it's fucking shitty and we're way past it. He has no intent. He doesn't want anyone to like. He's not he's not doing this Kevin Nash thing.
Yeah, he's not doing edge. He's not trying to be a cool heel that, is so much smarter than you because he's a fucking dork that thinks he's awesome and he's kind of a dork. But what he does is makes fun of you all by doing that. He makes no attempt to be a cool heel. He does not want you to even for a second think about cheering for him.
Yeah. He's not Hall and Nash going out there winking at the fans because they know there's money in a face turn and they want to stay over with he's not trying that. He's just being a dick. And he's a natural talker and he's naturally unlikable and he's great. And, it's like people are going to want to see him get fucking maimed inside this cage. This would be so much better if it was like 1986 Jim Crockett and he was in this match.
Oh, he'd come out with a white suit and get bloodied up, and it'd be awesome.
They'd fucking destroy him. But it's like, so that takes some of the edge off because it's going to be a...
No, because he's definitely going to do a top rope splash and pin, he's going to
Right.
He might win the fucking match. You know what I mean? He's going to definitely, he's at certain points going to beat up both Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. For sure. And that's where, like you said, in the modern day, in the old school days, the baby faces would take out, Dunn, Birch, and Lorcan and have them in another ring, beaten down or whatever. And then, it'd be like, O'Reilly and Fish, facing off with McAfee, and they just beat the fuck out of him for like 10 minutes until, the next guy or the next, maybe there's a two-man advantage or whatever, and they just beat the fuck out of him until, a heel came in and saved the day or something like that. So, it'd be something like that. But not anymore. So he's definitely gonna maybe get the visual win and definitely get some really cool spots throughout too. So whatever.
Yeah,
or maybe not. I don't know. They are leaning into the old school with him though. There's no doubt about it.
They are, but I get excited about these NXT War Games matches, but then there's no roof on the cage, and it's like, it's not the same impact. It's like a watered down version.
Yeah, and it just ends up being like a normal plunder match. Like there will probably be some sort of table. There will be a ladder. A guy will go through a table. It just ends up kind of being the same plunder that they always do. So
it's just an eye candy match. You're going to see guys go through tables.
Yeah.
And
War Games matches do stink all the time though too. That's one of the great.
I agree.
There's two good ones ever, but people always go, "Oh, the War Games." It's like
very over match.
You're thinking of two really good War Games, and the rest of them are utter trash. But that's fine.
I've never been a fan. I bury some War Games matches that people think are some of the greatest matches of all time, and they think I'm not. I've never been a fan of the War Games match, but these will be fine. Here's again, fucked up psychology. North American title. Leon Ruff, Johnny Gargano, and Damian Priest. 2 baby faces and a heel. Again, what are we doing here?
Why is it a triple threat?
Well, I mean, you know the story.
I know, but like, just come on.
Leon Ruff is Damian Priest's little buddy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a comedy champion. The belt doesn't fit on his waist. It's hilarious stuff, Rich. It falls to the floor.
Yeah.
So Damian Priest is trolling Johnny Gargano.
So much, so, as you can hear,
he's trolling. It's Damian Priest would rather troll Johnny Gargano with the unworthy jobber being champion than be the champion himself, apparently. But he'll have a chance to take the title back in this 3-way. So, I don't know. It's just the psychology's all off again. And what is this doing for Leon Ruff's career?
Nothing.
You're establishing him as... Now, it could be overcome. I mean, the 1-2-3 Kid overcame it. There's examples. Mikey Whipwreck overcame it to some extent. So, but it's possible you can get typecasts. So I don't know. I just don't like making that title a joke. But at the same time, it's like I don't really care about NXT anymore. It's very close to main roster levels of not caring. It's not all the way there yet. I still have a flicker of care, but we're getting there.
Yeah. No, and that's why I wanted to know, too. Like, I found it funny, and actually, in our notes, I made it, kind of a joke here. I said, special stipulation, singles professional wrestling match, Timothy Thatcher versus Ciampa. Because the other match we're going to talk about is a strap match. There's a 3-way and 2 War Games matches, and that's our pay-per-view. So,
it's just, NXT especially is just over inundated with stipulations constantly. It's, it's bizarre. But yeah, we may as well talk about that. So it's just Thatcher and Ciampa are just having a match. And the thing about Thatcher is funny because I'm enjoying him more than I ever have in his entire career. And every time they put him on TV, his quarter hour plummets. It just plummets to depths unforeseen ever.
Well, I mean, that is consistent with his career, though. So, I mean, I get it.
It is consistent, yes. I mean,
remember those wars we used to have with people where they're like, "Oh, it's great." Like less people than ever are going to Evolve shows. So I don't know I don't know.
And the ones that go are booing him.
Right, they hate it. Yeah, the ones that go are actively turning against the matches 5 minutes into them, and they're 35-minute matches. And when they're over, everyone gets happy and leaves. Like,
I never forget Eddie Dean's Ranch, Dallas, Texas. I mean, Evolve's biggest crowd ever. I think 1,100 people, whatever it was. And I tweeted out that picture of Thatcher's match. Everyone looking at their phones. Everyone. 7 rows deep, just staring at their phones. Eerie silence in the build. And those were hot crowds.
Stunned. It was stunned silence crowds. Show. Stunned silence.
They just didn't give a fuck about this man. And, and I've enjoyed him in NXT. I think he's been super interesting and really good. His quarter hour is just fucking bomb. Now, granted, it's those dope Thatch Ken segments, so I kind of get it. Other times it's been matches, but I mean, that should be okay. I mean, but he tapped out to Kushida the last time he rolled, and it's like you're trying to put the guy over as this dangerous shooter, and then shouldn't he be the one tapping people out? And he's on this card, Kushida isn't. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, they've lost the plot.
NXT is just a mess.
Yeah, they're a disaster.
No, and then the strap match with Loomis and Grimes. It's again the psychology here is the character who's supposed to be a serial killer is the babyface. It's like named after 2 serial. The implication is he's a serial killer.
Yes,
and he's creepy, hides down corners, and he's always watching. He's Sam Shaw with a new name, and Sam Shaw was a serial killer. Talked about garrote wires on Twitter long before Dick Togo.
Where's your location?
Where is your location? Talking about killing people with garrote wire. He's the same character, just without the, they're a little more subtle about it because, PG and everything. But he's a serial killer. And he's trying to kill Cameron Grimes. And he's the babyface. I mean, what do you want me to say?
You can't stand for whatever Cameron Grimes, Southern Rock fans, or whatever the fuck Cameron Grimes is supposed to be. So.
Cameron Grimes, I'll give him credit. He's owning the gimmick.
He is. No, he is. He absolutely is. This is not Trevor Lee at all. I forget that Trevor Lee ever existed. You know what I mean? Because he comes out and he fucking nails it. I'll give him that. Yeah, he definitely is that character, but it's one that's tough to kind of get behind on any level whatsoever.
There were glimpses of Cameron Grimes at the tail end of the TNA run when he was a TV jobber, and he was like a delusional heel TV jobber. There were glimpses, but you're right. Trevor Lee's firmly in the rear view. I mean, they've turned Trevor Lee up to 11 is what they've done, and asked him to grow a beard. And he's owning it. But the fatal mistake that Cameron Grimes made? He showed them that he has comedic.
Mm-hmm.
His career is over.
Cannot do that in that company ever.
Yeah, he can't be a top guy now, because once you show them that you can be funny, or have good comedic timing, or do really well at being goofy, you're fucked, because that's what you're going to be forever. It's like a double-edged sword. It'll give you like a little push, it'll get you on TV, but then you're fucked. Especially when Vince sees that shit, you're finished. So, in terms of because Cameron Grimes, his head doesn't hit the pillow at night hoping to be on Main Event and muck it up with Otis. No, the guy wants to go to WrestleMania and become a millionaire. And, once you show them that you're funny, forget it, you're done.
Well, that was NXT. I hope you're excited for that one.
Very optimistic about that shit.
I can tell. I don't think we're going to be doing an instant reaction live for NXT War Games 2020.
Listen, I'm game.
Let's see. I don't know.
I could be fair about the show. I mean, I'll watch it and review it.
I'll see what my plans are. So we'll talk about it, of course, next week for sure. But let me see let's see how the weekend plans out. And see about doing that. But that is NXT TakeOver. While we're talking about NXT, we'll touch on this briefly. WWE announces new additions to the Performance Center. New class comes in. The Rascalz, two members of the Rascalz, Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz, long rumored to be coming on, now official. Alex Zane, another one, very, very long rumored to be there. He is official now. Russ Taylor, they announced him as Russ Taylor, but you may know him as Rust Taylor. He's an interesting one that we'll definitely talk about in a moment. Joe, I know you're going to be sad about this one. Jiro is gone. So Jiro Higuchi has joined the WWE Performance Center. No more Jiro. We'll talk about that in a sec here. And former WNBA player Anariel Howard, I believe is how you pronounce her. Anariel, I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway, she's there as well. So the big ones that we need to talk about here, Desmond Xavier, Zachary Wentz. We'll start out with them. So two members of the Rascalz. We had heard reports, too, that Trey maybe did a tryout, but maybe wasn't really looking to leave or to join the PC right away. And there we see it is, two members of the Rascalz in there, but Trey Miguel not officially joining the Performance Center right now. Did that surprise you at all? They didn't come in as a full package. And what kind of expectations do you have for the Rascalz in the Performance Center?
Well, I mean, we talked about them a little bit. I think they're like kind of overrated. Like, I think they're better on paper than in practice. All three of them, and I'll throw Alex Zane in. I mean, they're nothing like the pre-generation of guys, Scoop, your Ricochets and people like that. I mean, this group that came after, and I know Zane's been around forever, but since really broke through, there's something to these guys for me. This little rest, but I'd be surprised if any three. Xavier, Wentz, or Zane, big WWE careers. Will they make the TV? Will they make it to NXT? Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Do I have big careers? I mean, maybe Desmond Xavier has the best chance. Combination of youth, look, work, of the. But I'm not particularly high on any of these guys. Or the third Rascal who hasn't signed, at least as of yet. It doesn't seem like he's coming in. It seems like he's either going to stay with Impact or try to catch on somewhere else. But I don't know. I'm not really super high on this group. This is, they're part of this group of modern indies that I'm just I haven't been very excited about.
Yeah, I think Des of those. Wentz is a guy who, the idea of Zachary Wentz is obviously, like you said, way better than what because you watch the output and it's fine. Like I think he's an okay wrestler. He's the guy that I think definitely could have really benefited by just kind of hanging around in the indies for a bunch more years. But he's 26 already, so it's like, is he going to get a whole hell of a lot better in the next 5 years? And how is he going to get better? Who's he going to wrestle against to get better? And that's kind of one of the issues with the indies right now is it's like, usually you would see a guy and it seems like they're, halfway there or just about there. And it's like, all right, well, what Zachary Wentz needs is to work with, Chris Hero for, a few months, or he needs to work, against Zack Sabre Jr. and Elgin and these sort of guys and Eddie Edwards and yada, 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 or whatever. And it's like, all those guys are gone. You know what I mean? Like all those kind of, who is Zachary Wentz going to face that he's going to get better again? So it's like, I mean, I don't know. He may have already peaked at this point. If he's not already good, I don't know if we're going to get too much. And Desmond Xavier, who I think has a lot to bring, I do like Desmond Xavier. He's a guy that I can see improving in the Performance Center. I could see him absolutely being a guy that they look towards and try to do stuff with. At the end of the day, though, both these guys are really small, kind of flippy guys. So it's like there's a ceiling, of course. Especially in that company proper, but NXT as well is not necessarily these days really the breeding ground for a lot of really like great short high flyer wrestlers. Like that's just not what they are, and it's never what they're going to be. So I think there's definitely a cap to those guys and what they can become. I don't begrudge anybody right now for joining the Performance Center, given what's going on in the world right now and getting a guarantee and guaranteed income or whatever. But Dez is a guy who I think, with a few more years on the indies, I think probably could have improved and seemed like he was probably about to be, kind of in main events and on that level. And Wentz is a guy who, I've never been a big Wentz guy. And Zayn's like fucking way older than everybody thinks. He's been around for 15 years, which is hard to believe for a lot of people. A lot of people think because he just got, big in the last, year or two. But yeah, he's been around forever. He's like, 34 years old, I think. I think he's the same age as me. And it's like, yeah, dude, it's probably just, join the Performance Center and just be I have no expectations for him whatsoever.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Your favorite Alex Zane match?
Oh, boy. The scramble match he had on that GCW show that I remember seeing. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, honestly, yeah. I know it's kind of a facetious question, but yeah, what is like the definitive Alex Zane indie match?
Yeah. What's your favorite Rascalz match? Now, look, I'm not trying to beat these guys up, but that's the current generation of indie wrestling. It's just not that good. Rich, if I asked you 5 years ago what your favorite Ricochet match was, you'd list off 20 matches.
Yeah, right.
If I asked you what your favorite Johnny Gargano match was, you'd list off 20 matches. You go right down the line, anybody from that era of guys who got, signed before. All those guys that were working against each other, during that era. Matt Riddle, you'd name a bunch of matches. This current crop of indies just isn't that good. And I'm not just trying to beat these guys up, but I liked your facetious answer because the first thing you think about with a lot of these guys is some sloppy scramble match in Game Changer. 3-star scramble match that left you unimpressed. I mean, that's what the modern indies are, and it's not doing any of these guys any favors. You don't have bookers. You have matchmakers. It's Alley Cat versus whoever and scramble match with these guys, and they go out there and they have the same shitty fucking match every time. That makes no impression on anyone and doesn't prepare. Now, they got signed, but I don't know that, I'm very excited about their chances. Any of these guys. So, I mean, it's just a really weak indie scene, and it's not due to COVID. I mean, just in general.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and as for Russ Taylor, another guy's been kicking around forever. Old school PWG guy from before it was cool.
This business is so stupid. You know what I mean? This guy's been here. You could have signed this guy at any point in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I mean,
he pops up on a show and we gotta have this guy. We gotta have Russ
pops
Taylor.
Up in New Japan.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta have him now. Can't let New Japan get him.
Right.
And I don't know that he had any kind of future in New Japan, but the idea being that they're just, sucking everybody up. And, Taylor, good for him. I mean, look.
Yeah, he's absolutely the guy that should sign this deal right away.
Yeah, and he looked good on New Japan Strong. He did. And I didn't see much of his German work, but the people who have said he did a nice job in WXW. I didn't see any of it. I remember him from way back in the day, and I remember him popping up on New Japan Strong, and I'm like, that's Russ Taylor? Okay. And he looked good. So good for him. And then as far as Jiro goes, I mean, I've had enough of Jiro. We've talked about it a million times. I'm sick of the guy. His act is very cringe, and I'm tired of him and his stupid jacket. And I'm glad I have to watch him in Japan anymore. Someone pointed out, who was it? It was Striga, Eastern Lariat, right?
Yeah.
With Dylan Harris. Yeah, Striga. I think he made this point on Twitter. You know, he beat the Triple Crown champion in the Champion Carnival. And then they know he's leaving.
God damn it.
Like, what is fucking Ishikawa doing? Is Suji Ishikawa the worst booker in the world, not named Bruce Pritchard?
He's pretty terrible. Yeah, when you talk about, we love long-term planning, and I don't know if that man plans 5 minutes ahead of time. I don't know if he plans. I think every match just happens in a vacuum. He just comes the next day and decides, all right, it's like, yeah, you do not. I mean, especially it's especially glaring in Puro, where you know, even your worst company, right down to like you go right down to your 0-1s or whatever. Even they have like a semblance of point A to point B to point. You know what I mean? Like they ever 2AW name any Puro ever has always had a semblance of, okay, this guy is winning because this matters to yada yada yada. You have Jiro beat your Triple Crown champion, then leave, so he can't get revenge against him. So.
Yeah, like why did he win that match? Like, geez. And he's such a geek too, like to beat your champion, you know. Yeah, Suji Ishikawa. I mean, nobody's as bad as Bruce Pritchard. He's the worst. I mean, he just sucks. But Suji Ishikawa is like right on himself for worst booker in the world. So yeah, I mean, Jiro, I could see him easily being a comedy guy on TV.
Oh, he's gonna be the most successful of all these guys. Of all these guys, at least, I have no idea about, you know, the WNBA woman or whatever. But as far as those guys,
can't break her down. Yeah,
I have no idea. I mean, and she's a raw athlete that the WWE Performance Center claims that they are, you know, churning out, you know, WWE superstars from these raw athletes, and I'm haven't found a one, but hey, I'm sure that they're coming sometime. No, Jiro's going to be the most over of all these guys. I mean, he's ready to go. I mean,
TV.
Oh, quickest to TV, quickest to everything.
TV.
Yeah, for sure.
But low ceiling.
Yes.
I mean, his career will go nowhere, but he was quick. Desmond Xavier has the highest ceiling.
Yes.
In my opinion.
I would agree.
Jiro has the quickest path, but a very low ceiling. And honestly, I think the other guys are just guys. I really don't see big things for Wentz, Zayn, or Taylor.
No, they're gonna be a remember these guys in a few years. Like in 2 years, we're gonna say, hey, remember, you know, when Alex Zane was like the hot indie guy and kind of laugh about it type thing. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it for those guys.
I mean, who else could even get signed off of this indie scene? I mean, we're really scraping the barrel here. I really think at this point, the name value indie wrestlers that are remaining are pretty much unsignable. And where you're going to find people are the unknowns, like what AEW is doing with Dark. And they're unearthing these Lee Johnsons and Will Hobbs types. I think that's where we need to go now because, and again, I know how this is going to come off and people are going to get mad at me and everything, but the remaining name value indie wrestlers just aren't signable to me. Like Alley Cat is not signable.
Did you see it? She had a quote this week where she said she has not gotten any offers, but she's open to offers. It's like,
well, okay, I mean, look, he's carved out a nice little indie career. I would you really consider signing her? I mean, of course not. God. Nick Gage is unsignable, you know, for a variety of reasons. You know, age, injury, history, and you know, obviously he's over like a motherfucker in Game Changer. Ricky Shane Page is unsignable. I mean, I could go right down the list. These people just aren't signable. So it's like, and these are your name value indie wrestlers right now. There's a couple. I mean, Mance Warner, I expect him to be signed at some point. And, you know, deservedly so.
Yeah. He's going to get scooped up by someone very, very soon. I mean, everyone's got their kind of eyes on him, too. And he's just probably playing it.
Because he can talk. Yeah. I mean, that guy can talk. There's, you know, I'd have him on my TV in a second. You know, and there's some other people who they really need to clean up their fucking act and they could get signed. I'm not going to name those. I have one person in mind who is sabotaging his career. And if he would just clean up his act, he's got size, a good look, he can work, but he's sabotaging his career with some of the decisions that he makes. And I mean, I'll tell you off the air, but it's like outside of that, it's like I don't see a lot of the big name indie wrestlers being particularly signable types. You know, this wave here, these guys were all, but again, I think we're dealing with low ceilings with this group.
I think in general, to your bigger question, I think we're probably looking in the wrong places. I think you and I, and again, we talked about this, in on the show in the past, is you and I are still looking at, what's the most popular indie in America? Okay, the talent's going to come from there, and that's just not the case anymore. That's done. That died with Gabe Sapolsky. That died with Ring of Honor. That died with Evolve. That died with DGUSA. That's not the case anymore. GCW is the most popular indie, bar none, no doubt about it. Clear as day, but it's not the indie that's churning out the next generation of talent. It's doing its own thing and gaining its popularity, independent of building the next generation of great wrestlers. So now that's on us.
And good for them.
Absolutely.
But they're not filling the niche of building right, exactly.
So it's up to us now to find that new place. It's been easy. For the last 15 years, it's been super easy to find the next generation of great wrestlers. Watch Ring of Honor, watch DGUSA, watch Evolve, watch PWG, watch, AAW, watch, it was very easy to find those great wrestlers because the big companies, the companies that we considered, the companies we followed, the most popular companies, they were churning them out. They were booking them and they were finding them and they were doing that sort of stuff. That's over now. So now it's up to us to, watch random stuff that we've never seen before. Watch, IWTV on a random, weekday and watch some stuff from Tennessee or, that Dylan Hales is booking or whatever. And that might be it. You know what I mean? Like that might be it. There's just places that we don't watch, that we don't have our, and it's much more difficult now to find that next generation because there's not a single booker or a bunch of companies that are congregating around certain guys anymore, which is kind of fascinating that it would get to this point. You would think that would consolidate even more, and that in the modern era it would just be more consolidated. Whereas now it's almost back in the old territory days. You got to keep your eye on like 15 different territories to find that next generation of guys, and it's not easy anymore.
Yeah, you got to dig deeper now. The trendy indies aren't doing that job. They're serving themselves very well.
Sure.
But they're not doing that job, and they're not doing a lot of these indies aren't doing these wrestlers any favors by giving them very little direction, not booking them not giving any kind of, we've been over this a million times. Nobody cuts promos anymore. Nobody's put into long-term programs or feuds or given anything to sink their teeth into. And they're just told to go out there and do spots. And again, that's very self-serving to the promoter. They're not doing talent any favors. And I don't really see anybody developing, not at the highest level indies, which is so weird to say. It hasn't been like that for 15 years, 20 years. Mm-hmm. So, I was just thinking about this group that got signed and who's next. What's the next wave? I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think it comes from deeper down the ladder now. And, I think that's the best place. You're going to have to unearth the unknowns. And that's really hard to do during COVID when no one's running shows and travel is tricky. So, anyway, we can't really speak on the WNBA player. Who knows?
She played at Texas A&M though. She was played nearby. So that's all I know about her. I know she got drafted. I forget. I don't know what round. I don't know anything about her, unfortunately. So
she'll probably be the biggest star. You have an easier path coming through as a woman because it's just numbers. There's less women in the Performance Center in NXT than there are men. So it wouldn't stun me at all if she's any good. If she ends up having a bigger career than the rest of this group.
Yeah. The big problem that's gone on a lot, and I kind of alluded to it earlier when the Performance Center says like, oh yeah, no, we churn we turn athletes into superstars and all that sort of stuff, is that that used to be the case. Pro wrestling, the biggest pipeline of pro wrestling was failed professional athletes. People that got hurt in the NFL, people that weren't good enough for the NFL, had to do the CFL, went into this, couldn't, like that was it. That was the pipeline for many, many, many years. But it has in recent years, and there's countless names that I could bring up. So it would take forever to kind of bring those names up, though. But there's been former pretty big athletes that have come in, and they, I think a lot of them they go to the performance center and they're thinking, all right, well, how long do you want me to do this before I can, move on to the next level? Like, this girl is like, I got drafted by the Seattle Storm. I was in the WNBA. Like, how long do I have to go in this ring in front of nobody and do hip tosses until I go on TV? And it's tough. Like, it's hard. And those old athletes, pretty early on, they didn't have to, they were pushed pretty early. If you had a name and you were whoever, like, you got to the top pretty quickly because you were just a natural athlete and you could figure it out on the way, while you're wrestling. And those guys were pushing and they were making good money, pretty quickly, thereafter. A lot of these people, WWE wants you to work your ass off in that performance center and work on NXT and do that sort of stuff. A lot of ex-athletes, that's not that appealing. If you have a fast track for these ex-athletes, I think that would be successful. I don't know how many of them just want to sit there in a fucking empty warehouse and do deadlifts and hip tosses all day.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's this weird fetish deal where Triple H wants it to be treated like a real sports camp and all this. It's wrestling. Just treat it like wrestling. These guys you're talking about in the 70s and 80s, it's funny. They would just train those guys for a month and throw them on the road. Yeah. They did okay.
Yeah, Dr. Death,
they went out
figure
and
it out.
It's
fucking Dr. Death Steve Williams. You'll figure it out, buddy. You know what I mean? Stan Hansen, you'll figure it out. Just take people's heads off for a little bit, and then we'll figure it out. And then all he ever did in his career was take people's heads off, and it was fine. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
because they went on the road and wrestled every night.
Yeah.
They didn't do drills and fucking the nonsense they're doing in the PC.
Yeah, there was that one guy. He was I forget what his name was. He had a bunch of concussion issues. I think he was married or dating the gymnast girl. I'm sorry, it's late in the day. I forget who it was.
I remember that guy.
What was his name?
Great.
Yeah, he should have been. He was just like, yeah, it was bullshit. I'm sick of it. Like, it's what the fuck is his name? God.
I can't remember his name either. He was super athletic. He was a flippy do guy.
Yeah.
He was a gymnast, and I think he was. I can't remember his name either. But I think he had concussion issues too, though. And he was just like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not. Stacey
Irvine or Stacey Irvine.
Stacey
Yeah,
Irvine,
that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one, and there's numerous. I mean, they bring in athletes every one of these performance center things is a lot of them are old ex-athletes, but yeah, a lot of them don't it hasn't really churned out stars yet because it's tough. So,
well, if NXT was serving its purpose and moving people onto the main roster, there would be room for people to come up. But because NXT is a de facto main roster show, and you have 38-year-old people occupying, you have Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole and all of these people, Io Shirai, who have no business being on the developmental show, taking up all the spots because you need to draw a rating. There's no room for people to develop. There's very few people on NXT who truly belong in NXT that are on television. They all belong on the quote unquote main roster, but this is the main roster now. They desperately need another NXT again. They need developmental for their developmental. So your Xia Lees and your people who really need development can get it. And it's just I know people think we do nothing but bury this, but what do you want me to say? Everything's fucked up in this company.
Yeah, that's permeated every aspect of it as well. You used to have the safe space of NXT, and now you don't even have that. So it's it is what it is. Well, let's get to a company that's doing everything right, Joe. New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we'll finish out the show here talking about the Best of the Super Juniors and World Tag League. We are recording this on the 3rd. I know there's a show that's going to be happening the day after, so some of these scores that we're going to be talking about, some of these ratings or standings or whatever, are not going to be 100% accurate as of the time that most of you guys listen to this. But hey, there's the live people listening, and we can only break down what we know at the time. So real quickly, I'll start with the Best of the Super Juniors. Here are your current standings, and then we'll kind of talk about what we've seen so far, what we like, what we don't like with this tournament. So Best of the Super Juniors, El Desperado, Sho, Hiromu Takahashi, Taiji Ishimori all have 10 points. They're all tied for the top spot. Bushi, Master Wato, both at 8 points. Robbie Eagles, Ryusuke Taguchi, both at 6 points. Dookie has 2 points. And Yuya Uemura, 0 points. So what have you seen of the Best of the Super Juniors, and what do you like so far? What do you dislike? What are your overall thoughts on the tournament?
So there's only one more show. for Super Juniors before the final. So who's tied for the top here?
Desperado, Sho, Hiromu, and Taiji Ishimori are all tied with 10 points.
Okay. Hiromu has Taguchi. Desperado has Eagles. Sho has Uemura, so he's going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Bushi has Dookie. He's going to win. So it's going to come down to tiebreakers because those two guys are going to win. I suppose there's an outside chance that Dookie could beat Bushi. But in order for Hiromu or who's the other one? Desperado.
Yeah,
so
Desperado, Sho, Hiromu. Yeah, Ishimori, Sho, Hiromu, and Ishimori are all at 10.
Oh, Ishimori has 10.
Yes, yeah, Ishimori has 10. Bushi is at 8. So I would.
Why am I talking about Bushi? Fuck Bushi. Okay, so Ishimori has Wato. He's not. Well, he could lose to Wato. How many points does Wato have?
Wato has 8. Wato has 8. So, but by he could get to 10, but one of those other guys is going to get to 12. So yeah, you could have Wato beat him.
So Wato's going to beat Ishimori. And Hiromu lost to Sho.
He did. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So the Sho thing is interesting because he still has Ishimori and he has Yu Uemura. So he's going to get 12 points. He's not going to lose to Yu Uemura. So I guess he would have to lose to Ishimori, and then Ishimori would have to lose to Wato, like you said, and then that could, well, yeah.
Three-way tie. You got to get. Well, no, you only need the top two. You don't need a tie. You only need the top two. So Bushi could lose to Dookie, is what they could do.
Yes.
Or if the wacky three-way times out to where, but you could have the Dookie upset too. You could do that. He could beat Bushi. That's not completely out of the question. But anyway, that's the last show, and then the top two will face in the final on. We just did the date, the 12th.
The 11th. The 11th. Yeah,
is both finals. So only one more show for the juniors. As far as I've seen every single show of the tour now, with the exception of the December 2nd show, which was a Super Junior show. That's the show where Sho beat Hiromu. I'm saying Sho a lot. It's very annoying. Stop saying Sho.
Event.
That's the event where Sho beat Hiromu to give him the tiebreaker, and Despy beat Ishimori to give him the tiebreaker over Ishimori. That's how those four guys ended up tied at 10. That's the only show I haven't seen yet. So as far as the tournament itself, look, it's been pretty good. It clearly isn't as good as the last few years. We've talked about it. Will Ospreay, Shingo, Dragon Lee, whatever other outsiders you want to bring up that may have been in it. It doesn't have a ton of juice. Hiromu's been the best wrestler in my opinion. I don't think he's having blow-away matches, but he is having the best matches. There's nothing resembling a match of the year contender. But again, I haven't seen Sho versus Hiromu yet. People have really loved that one.
Yeah, that I've not seen that either, full disclosure. So,
but there's nothing resembling a match of the year contender, and there's usually a few. I only have 3 matches in this entire tournament so far. 4 stars or better in my notebook, which for a best of the Super Juniors is a very low number. Mm-hmm. They're all Hiromu matches. It's the I'll give them to you. It's the Hiromu versus Despy match that we talked about, where with the chair finish, I went 4 1/4. Hiromu versus Dookie, I went 4 flat. And Hiromu versus Robbie Eagles, I thought was excellent. It's the best match I've seen so far. I went 4 1/4 on that. There have been some other matches that I think have been notable. Robbie Eagles versus Sho was a really cool match.
Yeah, I like that match a lot. That was really, really good.
I could have gone notebook on that. I just, for whatever reason, I didn't. Eagles losing to Hiromu, they were setting him up for a title shot before the pandemic. I thought maybe he could win that. But Hiromu's not the champ anymore, so I kind of get why Hiromu beat him, and then Eagles kind of gave him the thumbs up afterwards. So Eagles is eliminated, but he's a guy. He only has 6 points, but he's a guy I think is going to get pushed moving forward. We'll see if he ends up in Empire. But those have been the 3 best matches I've seen. But Sho and Hiromu's getting a lot of attention as well. The rest has been okay. Last year, for example, every single match Will Ospreay had was a notebook match. All of them. he beat this tournament by himself last year in terms of great matches. And that's before Hiromu and, everybody else, Shingo, and who had a great tournament and everybody else. It's just, I don't know, it's a combination of the clap crowds, watered down field, lesser field, two of the best guys moving up the heavyweight. It just hasn't been great. It has been watchable, though. The shows are fine. Same thing for the tag tournament. Shows have been fine. I don't have anything from the tag side in the notebook. If you're looking for great matches, there are none. But they've all been good. It's like a bunch of 3.5-star matches, 3.25-star matches for the most part, except when you get Fale and Chase Owens, except when you get there's a couple other teams that haven't been great. But for the most part, if you get Guerrillas of Destiny or Dangerous Techers or Fin Juice, if you're getting some of your top teams in there, they're going out there and they're having a decent match. And they're watchable shows, but they're very samey. The shows are very samey. The only team that's working a different style is the Empire. Cobb and Okan they're going out there and they're not having it's like they're working different than everyone else. They're not having like traditionally great matches, but to me their matches have been the most interesting because they're different. I watched them wrestle Dangerous Techers a couple nights ago. It was like a legitimate Southern style tag with a long heat segment on Zack Sabre Jr. Yeah. And Cobb and Okan are just Cobb is wrestling so well as a heel. And Okan, I've watched all of their matches because that's the one team where I make sure I watch their match. And then I skip around with the tags. Okan every night is trying different things. He's experimenting. He's learning to work in the role. And it's I feel bad for him because he's doing it in front of crowds that can't react. So it's hard to tell what's working and what isn't in terms of what spots are going to get over, what's going to get good heat, what is working, what's not. What terrible circumstances to have to try to figure out your character. But he's doing it. And he's trying different things. And I think he just has a presence that people are underrating. I know people are getting tired of me saying it, but this guy's going to be a star. He just carries himself different. And Cobb's doing a great job. And their matches are all super interesting, even if they're not great matches. Two of their losses have been like via schoolboy roll-ups. They're not even letting these guys like eat finishers. So you're even being protected in their losses. But as far as the rest of the World Tag League, it's been fine. The one thing about it is you're not getting the truly awful matches because a lot of the old guys aren't in it. There's no Ten Koji, so you don't have to deal with Tenzan. There's no Great Bash heels, so you don't have to deal with Hanma. And those are the teams that were really dragging it down the last couple years.
Yeah, World Tag League is super watchable this year. It's weird because I think like I've enjoyed some of the best of the Super Juniors matches a little bit better. Not all of them, like you said. There's only been a few that have really stood out. And there's really there's not a lot of like tremendous World Tag League matches, but the shows are watchable as fuck. You know what I mean? Like they're super easy watches. They're like 2 hours. Everyone's working pretty good. Everyone's got some amount. I mean, obviously, with the exception of Bad Luck Fale and Chase Owens, to a lesser extent, Evil and Yujiro, two teams I could really not do anything with. But everybody else is like working their asses off, working pretty well. No, the matches are not like they're not like, oh my god, go out of your way to watch blank and versus blank or whatever. Like I can't do that. I really can't say that there's one match that I saw that really struck me as, oh, this is a match that you absolutely need to check out. But there's been a lot of really good matches, and it's this year more than ever. It's good background noise. I would say for the most part. It's not shows that I really sit down and I say, okay, let me sit and take copious notes. But I watch and I go do some other stuff. I watch and it's fine. Like it's been very very watchable. I've been really surprised by God as well because I thought they've been really pretty good in this tournament. I was fearing that they would just absolutely add to the muck of some of those teams that do suck, but they've been pretty damn good. And yeah, there's enough good teams in there. Shingo and Sonata have made a pretty good unit as well. I'm kind of into that unit and into that group, and that might be Sonata's future. Yeah, I'm fine with that if that's what he's going to be as a tag wrestler. Techers, I've enjoyed their stuff. As you said, Okan and Cobb are really interesting. Goto and Yoshihashi have been cool. Fin Juice has been really, really good. And yeah, Tanahashi and Hanari's been good. It's been a really good tournament, a better tournament than I probably expected it to be. Even if there's not like a tremendous match that I'd say go out of your way to watch. So
no, I know there's no standout match. I can't I can't even think of one. I'm counting up last year's Best of the Super Juniors. You want to hear me count on the air?
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, why not? Yeah, I hear you because you're using the laptop mic. We hear every turn of the page, so it's fine. So let's count on the air too.
Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I feel like Mike Francesa. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
4, 5, 6,
15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Flip over to June. 20.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't think
21.
I don't think we're gonna get that many.
22, counting the final. 22 notebook matches counting the final. And I'm looking at my notes, and Hiromu wasn't in it.
Yeah, he was not. He was still hurt.
So if Hiromu would have been in it.
Oh my God, yeah. Imagine you had 22 without Hiromu. Yeah.
I had 22 without Hiromu last year.
Yeah, and that's with one wrestler. If I remember correctly, didn't Taka like forfeit and had like ended up missing 5 or 6 matches? Ren
Narita was in it for someone. But you're right. I think someone dropped out. You're right. You're right about that. So you're right. There were even less matches because yeah. They lost some matches because of top. Yeah, I think you're right. But I'm just looking at remember Shingo Show last year and all the Will Ospreay matches obviously. El Phantasmo was in it. Marty Scurll was in it last year. Bandito. Mm-hmm. Remember the Shingo Dragon Lee match?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Gresham.
Right there, match of the year contender. Robbie Eagles, Will Ospreay was a great match. Dragon Lee was having great matches every night. It's just different. Taguchi was tournament Taguchi. This year he has not been.
No.
Taguchi has not been good. So we haven't gotten big match Taguchi. And then down the stretch, you had the Will Ospreay Shingo match, which was a match of the year contender. And then Will Ospreay Dragon Lee, like 4 days later, was a match of the year contender. So we're just not getting that same quality this year. And shit, I forgot that Hiromu wasn't in it. I'm counting these matches. I'm like, there's no Hiromu matches. But then I'm like, oh shit, he was hurt. So, yeah, I mean, this is like the lousiest Best of the Super Juniors in years. I mean, but at the same time, I don't think it stinks.
No. It's just not like usually you could rely on, and it's one of my favorite tournaments every single year, and that's why I'm going through the retro series right now.
Rich, are you excited about this tournament?
No, I mean, not at all. I'm watching because I have to, but like, yeah, I'm not really sitting down and going, all right, slapping the hands together and going, hey, Best of the Super Juniors, let's go. I'm more excited about watching the classic ones because, like, for patreon.com/voices of wrestling or voicesofwrestling.com/patreon, I've gotten into like 13, 14, like ones that I remember watching live. I remember discussing with you. I just watched Kushida and Ricochet like yesterday. And like that's fucking tremendous. You know what I mean? Like I got Kyle O'Reilly and Kushida coming up, which was like one of my favorite matches that entire year. I have match of the year level matches coming up shortly, so I'm watching those and the excitement level and all that sort of stuff. And I'm remembering that this was the tournament that you and I would just get so excited about. We would go on these shows and just go, oh my God, look, and like this year's fine. Like I like this year's tournament, but yeah, it's just it does not have that same sort of like. I mean, I was every single match, every single show, every single minute of that entire tournament, culminating in an incredible final. Like this was our tournament. We like as much as the G1, we love the G1, of course. I always like Best of the Super because like it was so reliable. You know what I mean? Like in those past years, that even fucking Taguchi would step up, like we're saying, in those past years that we're talking about, 15, 16, 14, 13. Like there'd be interesting names. There'd be guys from, companies outside, you had Ricochet representing Dragon Gate. You have Kenny Omega from, DDT. You got, Teton showing up. You got, there was a lot of really cool stuff that this tournament would offer. Alex Shelley was in there. Kushida was in there. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you would get. And then, yeah, like now this year, it's fine. It exists. It's there, but it's just, yeah, it is not hooking me on any level whatsoever. But with that said, like I enjoy watching the shows, but I feel like it's more of an obligation that I'm watching the shows rather than me being like, all right, today I'm watching Best of the Super Juniors. Let's go. Like, I'm not waking up at 2 a.m. to watch any of these shows. I'm watching them when I have time to watch them.
Yeah, you just named like 3 guys. Like this is not even close. Like last year I had 22 matches, and last year wasn't even close to the deepest field. You had years with Kushida and Ricochet and Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish and Will Ospreay and all these other guys. Like, so this, I don't even think last year was the deepest field, and this year's, forget it. It's like, it's underwhelming, but it's still okay.
Look at this 14. You want me to read this 2014 field for you?
read off 2014.
2014, Kushida, Ricochet, Taka Michinoku, Matt Jackson, Bushi, Masquerade Dorada, Jushin Thunder Liger, Alex Kozlov. He withdrew, so he wasn't even in there. That's A block. B block, Alex Shelley, Ryusuke Taguchi, Taichi, Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega, Tiger Mask 4, El Desperado, Rocky Romero.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's pretty good.
and that's not even the best field. I don't think.
No,
That's
no.
like, so this it's look. It was circumstances too. It's the time of year. It's the COVID. It's the clap crowds. But it's not a great field. It's an okay field. Wato. I know you're a Wato defender. Here's the thing about Wato.
Wait. What?
You're a Wato defender.
Am I?
Yes.
When?
You think people go too far in their critique, which is probably true.
No,
but
do I?
Listen.
I don't think I do. I say he's somewhere in between what people say.
Well, see, you're a Wato defender.
I think he stinks, but some people say he's like the worst wrestler they've ever seen in their life, and I don't think he's that. He's an absolute dork. But then I fight more against the Wato's amazing. Look at this GIF, and it's like a GIF of him fucking something up, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
like that's look at him do this roll up, and I'm like, he fucked it up though. Like I don't know if that's the best example.
Let me tell you something. He's been the worst wrestler in this tournament.
Oh, by far. Oh, no doubt.
It's either him or Taguchi.
Yeah, and Taguchi is like...
Taguchi's like fine.
Yeah,
Taguchi's going to go out there and give you a professional performance at minimum. He's just not having great matches.
But Wato is worse than Bushi, who is the trendsetter for shitty juniors for me in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Bushi's been aggressively okay in this tournament. And the other guys blow him away. Dookie blows Master Wato away. It's not even fucking
Oh my
close.
God. Not even
different universes.
Dookie's been better than those three.
Yeah. Oh, Dookie's been top half this entire tournament for me.
I
think about it. Think about it. Go over the matches.
Top half. Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
Hiromu,
well, okay. Yeah, he's not better than Hiromu. He's not better than Desperado.
He hasn't been better than the following people: Hiromu, Sho, Eagles, Despy. No way.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think I could make a case that he's been better than Ishimori.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree. Ishimori mails it in half the time. He's a lazy motherfucker half the time. That guy is so talented. He mails it in, I think, every time.
I know. I don't know if he's actually. I don't know what. He's a guy who I feel like for the last 5 years, every time I open up a Taiji Ishimori match, I go, here we go. And then it's like never. It's like there's the match against Hiromu, that Best of the Super Junior final.
Of course.
Enough. That's fucking tremendous. It's like incredible. Yeah. But he'll do that. He'll sprinkle in like once every 3 years. He'll have a great match. And you're like, yeah, let's go. This dude rules. And then he comes out and most of the time he's disappointing. I don't know. Yeah, I've always kind of felt that with him. I don't know.
He picks his spots. Yeah, for sure. So Dookie might barely be top half. Uemura's been good.
Yeah, I guess I would probably... It'd be an interesting discussion between him and Uemura for that top half.
But Wato, the thing with Wato is like, I don't know. I don't think he's like a terrible...
Don't ever call me a Wato defender, by the way. That those are fighting words. Get out of here.
I think you're a Wato defender because you said he's in between. Here's the thing. He's the only person in this tournament capable of killing another human with his botches. It's like... I worry about him sometimes. Like the shit that he tries shit over his head. I don't know. He's awkward. He's a very awkward wrestler. We do know that he got the old "I did what I could do with a Wato" from someone in this tournament.
Oh, you're right. I forgot we got that. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Don't say no more, but it's funny because it's like
I forgot we got that. Yeah.
That puts him in Yujiro class.
Yeah. Where his peers kind of think he stinks too. So
yeah. The quote was like the same. I did what I could do with a Wato. Yeah. It's funny, right?
Yeah, I got the most out of Wato that I can, or something like that.
It was I did what I could do with a Wato. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, which is not great. Not so great.
Anyway, the Super Junior to me is underwhelming by Super Junior standards, but just perfectly fine. And the World Tag League has over-delivered to some extent, but is also just perfect fine. Like, so they're both just perfectly fine. I can't say that any of this is essential viewing.
No, I would say no. I would say, I have not watched the show Hiromu match, which I heard about. I mean, that might be, people have put it over pretty highly, but people put over Hiromu and Robbie Eagles a lot too, and I like that match a lot. But it's not one that I would like. If somebody asked me, "Hey, do I have to watch this match? Like, I'm pressed for time. Do I have to watch the match?" I liked it, but I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that good. And I saw people throwing on 4.5 and 5, and I'm like, dude, get out of here. It's not that good. So, I don't know. I think people are really like they really so badly want some matches in this tournament and New Japan to be doling out those incredible matches that we've seen in years past. And I just don't think they are right now, and that's fine. It's okay that they're not. Wrestle Kingdom will be an interesting case. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, I don't know. I say this without seeing Sho and Hiromu, and that seems to be the consensus best match of the juniors so far. Yeah, so we'll find out after that. But other than that, no, I don't think anything is essential viewing like you're saying. But I have still, with that said, enjoyed watching these shows just because they're fine. They're okay. They're decent wrestling. But yeah, it's not go out of your way to check out type stuff.
Yeah.
All right, and I think that is it for us, Joe. Anything else you have on mind?
No.
Okay.
I have to pee.
Yeah, you got to pee. All right. I kind of have to as well. So let's get you that new headset. So sorry again about the audio quality, but I think we made the most of it with the laptop mic. But that is it for us. Voicesofwrestling.com for all of the content we have, reviews, previews, all that other good stuff, columns. Patreon.com/voicesofwrestling. Our Winter's Coming review that we did the instant reaction live last night. Also $10 gets you the live flagship if you want to listen to us live. But that is it for us. So for Joe Lanza, I'm Rich Craich. We'll talk to you next time on the Voice Wrestling Flagship Podcast. Take care.